Chapter 1734. These were the two leading figures of the Nine Infants tribe. Although there were other kings, only these two were still in the tribe at this time. Under the cold moonlight, endless shouts of killing could be heard. Many experts of the Nine Infants tribe had gone crazy from killing. This was the place where the elites of the Nine Infants tribe were gathered. They had never thought that they would be attacked. They would even be killed in the tribe. This was something that they had never expected. However, Yishuan was like a cold death god at this time. Although the foundation of the Nine Infants tribe was beyond his imagination, even with the leadership of Star Beast, King Tidesong, and the Nine Infants tribe's King Division experts being all killed, they still brought a huge number of casualties to his mechanical beasts. Their casualty rate was more than 10%, and this was still because the other party did not have any King Division experts. Otherwise, if they were evenly matched, they would at least lose more than 3/4 of their mechanical beasts in order to take down the ancestral land of the Nine Infants tribe. This was also why, even with the current situation of the human race, their former enemies did not have the intention to kill them. This was because the counterattack of the human race before death was enough to bite them to death. Everyone wanted someone else to be the one to take the lead, not themselves. Therefore, at this time, no one was willing to take the lead. Back then, in order to capture the royal court, even with the Wong family leading the way and opening up the defensive line, the demon race still suffered heavy losses. Countless elites of the human race fell, and the demon race also suffered heavy losses. If not for the abyssal demon lord holding the fort, at this time, the demon race might have already suffered heavy losses to the point where they couldn't continue fighting. The foundation of the human race for many years was not a joke. Most people would reconsider the consequences of such a battle. However, they had encountered a terrifying existence like Yishuan. He did not care about the loss of these mechanical beasts, nor did he feel any heartache. The only thing he wanted to do was to uproot the Nine-Headed Infants tribe and intimidate all the other tribes. Although the Nine-Headed Infant tribe still had a huge amount of strength scattered outside, this was their core and most basic strength. It could be said that they were the essence. After all of them were removed, the Nine-Headed Infant tribe would definitely suffer a huge blow. It might even be possible that they might even be removed from the 10 great royal tribes. It wasn't impossible to eradicate all of their forces. However, it would take time. However, the most crucial thing was that King Tidesong didn't have much time left, and this had brought great trouble to Yishuan. Although King Tidesong had only participated in one battle in this battle, it was still the most crucial one. Even Yishuan could feel the fear of that Jiuying. Faced with such a terrifying character, no one but King Tidesong would be able to control the situation. Just the Nine-Headed Infants clan alone was already so terrifying, let alone the other clans. Therefore, they could only rely on King Tidesong's strongest combat power. The mechanical beasts were cold and merciless. They would not stop at all. Under Yishuan's ruthless command, the entire demon beast army attacked the ancestral land of the Jiuying tribe without caring about the casualties. Blood flowed like a river. Corpses piled up like a mountain. It could be said that wailing could be heard everywhere. Whether it was the experts, the old, the weak, the women, or the children, they were all slaughtered. Yishuan's heart was made of stone. He didn't have the slightest change because he knew that if he didn't eradicate the Nine-Headed Infants clan and deter the other foreign clans, then such a tragic ending would fall on the human race. In his heart, the answer was clear at a glance. This was a question of whether his friends or himself would die. The massacre lasted for less than an hour. During this period, King Tidesong, Yishuan, and the Star Beast attacked one after another, completely destroying their last defense. Needless to say, the remaining old, weak women and children could be trampled to death with one stomp. The real battle was still the battle between the king-level experts. After an hour, the smoke had settled. The experts of the Nine-Headed Infants clan had been completely slaughtered. Not even a blade of grass was left. The wealth that had been accumulated for countless years had all fallen into Yishuan's hands. There were several dragon veins among them. In addition to other heavenly treasures, elixirs, crystal stones, and so on, it could be said that he had become rich overnight. It was comparable to the Demon King's treasury that Yishuan had obtained. Yishuan couldn't help but sigh. As expected, killing and arson was the golden belt. Ha ha, Yi Shiwen, this time's killing was too satisfying. Yi Fan laughed and looked at Yi Shiwen. Let's go to the next clan. This time, our target is the Wang clan. This traitor of the human race. Do you think that he can escape by relying on the demon race? Yi Shiwen sneered and commanded the mechanical beasts. They were like huge dark clouds in the sky, crossing the vast sky and fighting in the unknown distance. The Long army was majestically killing into the distance. That night, the Nine-Headed Infants clan was directly uprooted. After the Nine-Headed Infants clan, the Wang clan didn't last long either. In fact, their foundation was even worse than the Nine-Headed Infants clan. They were completely annihilated. Moreover, what was worse than the Nine-Headed Infants clan was that they had betrayed the human race. Although they survived the attack of the demon race, they had also become the target of disdain. Therefore, in such troubled times, the Wang clan's strength had all shrunk in their ancestral land. They were captured by Yi Shiwen in one fell swoop. Among them, a few peak celestial beings and king-level experts were also personally killed by Yi Shiwen and torn in half. After the Wang clan was completely annihilated, Yi Shiwen didn't stop and directly found some transmission arrays that the human race used before. He teleported to the border of the 100-clan alliance and directly killed his way into the North Mountain clan. This arrogant clan that had previously been clamoring to exterminate the human race finally welcomed its destruction. All the experts were suppressed, and the clan's reclusive old ancestor died in the hands of King Taitsong. It was extremely shocking. By the time the three clans were completely annihilated, it was already dawn. In one night, the three famous clans were slaughtered. Apart from the fact that King Taitsong was in charge, the more important reason was that Yi Shiwen didn't care about the losses. After a whole night of slaughter, the mechanical beast that he could mobilize could be said to have been lost. In one night, the casualty rate had reached 80%. Basically, it could only be regarded as enough to protect themselves. It was impossible for them to fight everywhere like they did today. Among the three clans, there were terrifying experts in charge. However, without exception, all of them were killed by Yi Shiwen. Fortunately, the foundation of the three clans over the years could be considered to have made up for Yi Shiwen's losses. These mechanical beasts could be said to be something that could only be encountered by luck. No one knew where the Demon King got them from back then. Basically, one less meant one less, and there was no way to replenish them. The night was torn apart by the first ray of dawn. The night of battle finally came to an end. In an instant, he had defeated three clans at lightning speed. Even Yi Shiwen was already very tired. His cyan robe was stained with blood. Towards the end, he had practically single-handedly taken care of all the fights with the experts of the king grade. To him, these people were the best way to hone himself. Any one of these people was at the peak of the celestial realm, a king rank expert. They had a deep foundation and rich combat experience. There were even several bloody battles with Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen also suffered quite a lot of losses. There were times when he was seriously injured by the enemy's old ancestor. If not for the help of the Phoenix regeneration technique, it would be impossible for him to continuously conquer three clans and fight all the way until now. The faces of Yi Fan and Star Beast were abnormally tired. After continuously killing for a night, they had used up the last bit of chi in their bodies. However, for the bloodthirsty Star Beast, this was also a very satisfying thing. As for Yi Fan, he had learned a lot from this night of killing. He even had the possibility of breaking through. On a mountain peak, the dawn sun tore through the night and fell on the ground. Overnight, the ground was covered with corpses and blood flowed like a river. Only Yi Shiwen and the others were left. The mechanical beasts had been kept by him. In the void, King Tai Tsong's figure was faintly discernible. If it was originally considered a physical body, then now it could be seen that it was just a spiritual body. Yi Shiwen, although I have been trapped in the divine battlefield for these years, I have seen countless people in the past. You are still considered as the most amazing person I have ever seen. Not only your cultivation, but also your luck. I am already satisfied to be able to come back this time and do my last bit for the human race. In the future, The human race will all depend on you. King Song stood with his hands behind his back. His back was straight like a spear, indomitable and indomitable. One could see the aura of a king overlooking the world. Although I am still reluctant, I have enough. In the future, it will all depend on you. As he spoke, King Song's body shattered inch by inch. This time, even his spirit could not be preserved. He completely turned into a rainbow and disappeared between heaven and earth. Yi Shiwen's heart was incomparably sad. If King Song did not participate in this massacre, perhaps he could have persisted for a while longer. But now, in this night, he burned the last of his essence and was buried between the dawn and the break of dawn. Recalling King Song's life, he was a legend. It was as if he was born at the right time. When the human race flourished, a king should be born. Therefore, he appeared and led the human race on the road of revival. He was even known as the first king in history. With his own strength, he approached the realm of emperor. He was the first person in history. Fighting for the human race was like his mission. From glory to the end, he fought for the human race until his death. But history would remember his achievements. As long as the human race existed, it would never be forgotten. Chapter 1735. At dawn, King Song transformed into a rainbow and disappeared completely. This was only a strand of his obsession. He had been thinking about it for a long time. He returned to his hometown and took a look at the land that he loved the most. He had been waiting for Yi Shiwen's arrival for a long time. His true body was still guarding the divine battlefield, unable to return for the rest of his life. Yi Shiwen was extremely sad. Although he didn't spend much time with King Song, King Song had completely influenced Yi Shiwen. A legendary life needed a legendary ending. Yi Shiwen clenched his fists. One day, he would return to the divine battlefield and retrieve King Song's real body. Here, only here was his true home. This was the only home he could return to. Yi Shiwen held back his sadness and said, "It's time to issue an order to the world to deter the foreign clans. We can't let the senior's death be in vain." Although he knew that even without this battle, King Song would still pass away, he still felt extremely sour in his heart. Overnight, Yi Shiwen issued an order to the world. By the decree of King Song, the Jiuying clan and the North Mountain clan refused to repent despite repeated warnings. Their crimes are punishable by death. Now, their clans have been destroyed, and their people have been slaughtered. The other clans should take this as a warning. The Wang clan has betrayed the human race. Their crimes are unforgivable. Now, their clan has been destroyed as a warning to others. As soon as this order was issued, the world was shocked. No one expected that Yi Shiwen would actually dare to take action. He actually dared to take action against the three clans. Most importantly, they succeeded. Among these clans, the weakest should be the Wang clan. Back then, they were just a noble clan among the human race. However, after so many years of support and help from the demon race, their hidden strength was already comparable to the royal clan. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to withstand the crazy counterattack of the human race when the royal court had just been breached. In addition, there were many demon race experts stationed in the Wang clan. In addition, there were many demon race experts coming to the ancient Barrens continent through the crack on the other side of the demon race. However, all of them were slaughtered. Regardless of whether it was the Wang clan or the demon race, none of them were spared. This meant that the three royal clans had been razed to the ground by Yi Shiwen overnight. When everyone heard this news, their first reaction was to not believe it at all. They thought that it was some kind of prank. But very quickly, a lot of news spread. Some people discovered that the ancestral lands of those clans had indeed been razed to the ground. It was simply unimaginable. Those places that used to be extremely prosperous in the past were now tens of millions of miles away, without a single person. It was simply unbelievable. This news is true. My God, I saw it. The Wang family is in flames everywhere. Those devils who used to go in and out are all gone now. The Northern Mountains clan has completely fallen into the enemy's hands. The battle caused the heavens and the earth to shatter. At that time, someone must have used an array formation to completely seal up the area, so no one noticed it at all. But now that I've gone in and taken a look, it's too terrifying. It's like the end of the world. The heavens and the earth have collapsed. Clearly, a terrifying battle has occurred. The Jiaoying clan has also disappeared overnight. The ground is covered with the corpses of the Jiaoying clan. This time, the Jiaoying clan is almost erased. Everyone was shocked. At this time, the news that came from all directions confirmed Yi Shiwen's words. They were eradicated by King Taizong. They instinctively couldn't believe it because King Taizong was too far away from their era. How could he still survive until now? This was simply impossible. But if it was not King Taizong who did it, then who else could it be? Many people were also very puzzled. The full strength of the human clan was already there, just in Mount Shi. At this time, even self-protection was not enough, let alone using such a huge force to raise the three clans to the ground. This was simply impossible. Moreover, all the major forces had sent scouts to keep an eye on the human army. However, they clearly hadn't seen any human army. In other words, it was impossible for the human army to have made a move. Another major force had made a move instead. This force was very terrifying. Otherwise, it would be impossible to uproot the three clans in a row overnight. This was simply above any known force. Although it was not comparable to the entire demon clan and the behemoth of the human clan, it was enough to make many people very frightened. At this time, even if many people still couldn't believe it, there was no way to refute it. Because apart from the real king, who had been conferred the title of king, was there any other possibility? Even in the ancestral lands of the three clans, some people also found traces of a king-level array formation. Although only a little bit was left, it still possessed very terrifying power. Such a formation could only be arranged by a real king. Otherwise, although all the major forces had once had the existence of a king and could also arrange a similar formation, it was impossible for such a formation to be so silent that the three clans did not even have time to react before they died. If it were them, just to arrange such a formation might take several years, or even more than 10 years, and consume countless resources. Therefore, such a formation could only be used for defense, but not for offense. To be able to use such a formation to attack, apart from a real king, they could not think of any other possibility. All these signs indicated that a king had participated in the attack, but at the same time, there were more doubts. If there really was such a king, why did he not appear before? Why did he not appear when even the imperial court of the human clan was breached? This did not make sense. Moreover, this king was King Taizong, who was famous for his strength in the human clan. King Taizong had been fighting all his life, and no one knew how many experts of the foreign clans he had killed. Among them, there was no lack of kings back then, but in the end, they all died in his hands. This was also why King Taizong was known as an existence close to being conferred the title of emperor, the #1 king in the world. At that time, the human clan was in its most prosperous state, and they were the only ones in the world. Everyone's impression of King Taizong was too deep. Therefore, at this time, they did not dare to be certain. Furthermore, since King Taizong had already slaughtered the three races, why wouldn't he come out? Once King Taizong appeared, even if the other races had eyes growing on their noses, they wouldn't dare to not send someone to see him. Although a king-conferred level expert couldn't compare to the legendary sovereign emperors, he was still a terrifying existence that the declining antiquity era couldn't imagine. Even if it was just an incarnation, it was enough to conquer the world. All kinds of questions and doubts lingered in the hearts of the people, making them extremely shocked. They did not dare to believe what had happened. As time passed, this matter became more and more fermented, and more things were revealed. The foundation of the various clans was suddenly revealed to everyone. It could be said that all of them had extremely terrifying trump cards, but in the end, they were still uprooted by Yi Shiwen. No one dared to underestimate Yi Shiwen's terror, especially the Nine Infants clan and the North Mountain clan. They were both clans that had produced king-level experts in the past, and they were extremely prosperous. Although the Nine Infants clan had a few king-level experts who were not in the clan, The king-level experts of the other two clans were still in the clan. But in the end, they were all uprooted without exception. It seemed as if a bloody battle had taken place. Just the traces left on the ground and the shattered Tao runes in the sky were enough to reflect the horror of that battle. And such behemoths were actually uprooted, and in a single night, 3 clans were consecutively uprooted. At this time, everyone faintly felt like they were at a loss for words. It was like a shocking thunder that struck their hearts fiercely. Originally, they thought that the human race had lost the possibility of rising again. But now, if King Taizong was still alive, then everything was hard to say. With a king-level expert leading the human race back to the peak of the antiquity, it was only a matter of time. For a moment, the hearts of the various clans were inexplicably shocked, and all kinds of feelings were mixed. Even the demon race had stopped their encirclement against the human race because of this news. It seemed that they had temporarily stopped after receiving the orders of the highest-level Abyss Demon Lord. One could imagine just how shocking this matter was to the various great clans. But compared to the mixed feelings in the hearts of the various clans, the human race was crying tears of joy. Although they were also extremely shocked at the beginning, they soon became extremely excited. Originally, they thought that after the royal court was breached, they would be the target of the demon race's encirclement. It could be said that they were retreating step by step, and the crisis of extermination was right in front of them. Who knew that there would be a sudden turn of events? The Nine Infants clan and the Northern Mountains clan were the few who clamored to exterminate the human race before talking about the alliance of the various clans. They were also the most hostile forces towards the human race. Now that they were completely annihilated overnight, all of a sudden, many of the clans who were originally clamoring to exterminate the human race immediately shut up. They did not want Yi Shiwen to find them and uproot them. Even the Nine Infants clan and the Northern Mountains clan were completely annihilated, let alone them. Even some of the other royal clans who clamored to exterminate the human race suddenly shut up. Although they were still not sure whether the human race's King Taizong still existed, they were not willing to stand out at this time when King Taizong was in the limelight. That was something only an idiot would do. Anyway, if this matter was true, then they should be glad that they did not push the human race too hard. On the contrary, if it was false, then sooner or later, they would have the opportunity to settle the score with the human race. Therefore, many people chose to wait and see, which also gave the human race a precious breathing space. Chapter 1736. For the human clan, although they only had this news now, there was no way to completely solve the current predicament, but it was already precious for the human clan to get some breathing room. This could allow the human clan to transfer more people to Mount Qi and preserve enough vitality for the future rise. For the human clan masters, although they were all high and mighty, they were also very clear that only these ordinary people were the foundation of their foothold in ancient times. Without these ordinary people constantly producing geniuses and geniuses, the strength of the younger generation of the human clan would not be sufficient. Even if there would not be any problems for a while, the inheritance would be enough to threaten the future survival of the human clan. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the major surviving forces were constantly working hard. King Taizong is still alive. Many of the older generation masters couldn't help but cry with joy when they thought of this. Not to mention the Jiuying clan and the North Mountain clan, they have been very tough on the human clan since the beginning. They were one of the few royal clans that were the most unfriendly to the human clan. However, the one that really made the human clan gnash their teeth in hatred was the Wang clan. If the Wang clan hadn't changed sides at the last moment, with the royal court which had been reinforced by the 4 kings, as well as various heritage and divine treasures, how could the demon clan have broken through so easily? And it was not the collapse of one line of defense at a time, but the entire line of defense collapsed overnight. Many people didn't even have time to react before they were killed by the demon clan. It could almost be said that countless elders of the remaining major forces in Mount Qi had died tragically in the royal court, and some people had indirectly died in the hands of the Wang clan. They had long hated the Wang clan to the core. They hated the Wang clan so much that there was already a blood feud between the two sides. Even in the eyes of the remaining forces of the human clan, If there was a list of the most abominable people, the Wong clan would definitely be at the top of the list, followed by the Demon clan, and then the major foreign clans. At this time, if the annihilation of the Jiao clan and the North Mountain clan was only to deter the foreign clans, then the collective annihilation of the Wong clan was a great satisfaction. Everyone could not wait for the Wong clan to die immediately. The death of the Wong clan also completely deterred some of the weak-willed people within the human clan, and also boosted their morale. Many of the older generation figures were filled with emotion when they thought of this. Some of them were brought by Yi Shiwen. At this time, no one would mention Yi Shiwen's so-called collusion with the devil race. Moreover, many people had clamored that Yi Shiwen had brought a calamity to the human race. They didn't even have a chance to breathe. It was Yi Shiwen's bloody battle that night. It was his struggle that tore a bright light in the dark night of the human race and illuminated the road of the future. The human race wasn't bound to perish, nor was it bound to be exterminated. There was still hope for their future. This was too important for the human race, which had fallen into a predicament. Once this news came out, all the major races were shocked. Many races fell into an inexplicable fear because they had more or less targeted the human race. This night, they had only eradicated 3 races. What about the next time? Many small tribes could no longer bear the pressure and withdrew from the human territory, not daring to continue acting presumptuously. For the higher-ups of the royal clans, there was an inexplicable fear. For a long time, as the masters of the King division, they could be said to be invincible in the world. The death of every master of the King division would shock the world. Why? It was because the masters of the King division were very difficult to kill. Every master who could step into the King division could be said to have countless life-saving means. If they were not really forced into a dead end, how could they be killed? The most terrifying thing was that not only one master, but a group of masters of the King division had all fallen, all died in battle. What was even more terrifying was that they all knew that those royal clans had some trump cards and means that surpassed the King division. These were all their last resort. Just like when the devil race broke through the imperial court, it attracted the crazy attacks of the 4 royal clans. They suffered heavy losses for a while. If it weren't for the suppression of the Abyss Devil Lord, they might have been forced out of the imperial court by the human clan. In the end, the last trump card and trump card of the Nine clan and the North Mountain clan couldn't protect them, and they were also killed. Although there were still many masters outside, the most elite part had been completely slaughtered. In the eyes of many, it was no different from the annihilation of a clan. It was impossible for them to have the prestige of the past. Back then, the Heavens sect could become a royal clan after many years of accumulation, and how deep their foundation was. Therefore, when many people were still discussing, they all sent their masters to investigate. If they couldn't find out the truth of this matter, they wouldn't feel at ease. Facing such a fierce person who had the ability to annihilate their clan, they couldn't help but be cautious. Is King Taizong really still alive? That's impossible. The world has changed greatly. Since the war in the past, the invasion of the devil race, it completely destroyed the vitality of the ancient Baron's continent. It should be impossible for such a terrifying master to still exist. From the information obtained by the major forces, they felt a terrifying power that made them shudder. Their backs were drenched in cold sweat, and their bodies were shivering. They couldn't believe it, but they didn't dare to deny it either. After all, the Abyss Demon Master had already appeared, right? Although the Abyss Demon Master had been famous for many years during the previous invasion of the Devil Race, he definitely didn't have the power he had today. Since the Abyss Demon Master could survive and improve his martial arts, there was no reason why a man like King Taizong couldn't do the same. His means were many times stronger than the Abyss Demon Masters. In theory, this was also possible. However, as a clan and force that had been passed down for countless years, they also knew many secrets that other clans didn't know, including the disappearance of the kings in the past, and some secrets of the ancient times. These were things that others didn't know, but they knew. From the records in their ancestral records, it was impossible for a king to survive. They didn't know whether the Abyss Demon Master had been bestowed the title of king, but even if he had been bestowed the title of king, it wasn't from the past, but from a new king. This also proved that the records in their ancestral records were correct. Even the human race had never seen a king appear to save the world. If there really was a king, why didn't he do it earlier? Many people were shocked and confused at the same time. In fact, many people were thinking that no one had ever seen King Taizong come into being after Yi Shiwen had issued the decree. Thinking about it carefully, from the beginning to the end, it was only Yi Shiwen's side of the story. He said that King Taizong existed, but who had seen it? Who had seen it? No one had seen it. Although it was indeed shocking for a clan to be exterminated overnight, if they couldn't produce evidence of King Taizong's existence, how could they be willing to retreat from the human race's territory? In the countless years of disputes, the only bargaining chip to maintain peace between them and the human race was the strength of both sides. Now that the human race was heavily injured by the demon race, it was not easy to take advantage of this opportunity to eliminate this opponent. As for using the human race to hold back the Devil Lord, it was even more ridiculous. The human race only had this kind of strength left. They didn't even have a single king-level expert. What value did they have? Did they want to hold back the devil race with this kind of strength? What a joke! Before the imperial court was breached, the human race was indeed influential. Whether it was the idea of letting the human race and the demon race exhaust each other, or the idea of letting the human race block the demon race, at least the human race did have such ability. But now, they didn't even have the qualification to be a chess piece. Although the Northern Mountain clan and the Joeying clan were at the forefront, in fact, this was also the result of the royal clans adding fuel to the fire. The current human race had no value at all, and it would be fine if they disappeared as soon as possible. Whether as slaves or as blood food, the human race didn't deserve to be on equal footing with them. For the past few decades, such thoughts had existed. So at this time, how could they be so willing to give up all their territory? If they couldn't find the most convincing evidence, they would definitely not agree. But even so, they didn't dare to rashly deny the existence of King Taizong. After all, various traces showed the existence of King Taizong. Under such circumstances, they all tacitly stopped their attacks and encroachment on the human race. After all, on the surface, the human race was still their ally, and devouring the territory of the human race was just nibbling away at it. Only a few royal families were clamoring to eradicate the human race, not all of them. On the surface, the relationship between the human race and the human race was still acceptable. At this moment, after knowing that his entire tribe had been uprooted by King Taizong, Joeying Demon King was about to go mad with anger. Initially, he was a king of a royal tribe, but in the blink of an eye, he had become a stray dog that had fallen into the water. He had no home to return to. Even his ancestral land had been uprooted. In his heart, he was already flustered. If it wasn't for the last bit of rationality that told him that if King Taizong really existed, even he would be flattened. The only reason he was still alive was because he was lucky that he wasn't there at that time. But still, he clamored, "If King Taizong is really still alive, then come out and meet me. If he's really still alive, I'm willing to tie my hands and feet to go and accept my punishment. If not, then the human race is lying to the world, and you deserve to die." Chapter 1737. The Joeying Demon King's words immediately focused everyone's attention on the human race. Or rather, on Yi Shiwen, who had yet to appear. After killing 2 geniuses consecutively in that battle, Yi Shiwen disappeared from everyone's sight and never appeared again. However, he attracted the attention of all the major races in the ancient barrens, because there was a terrifying figure standing behind him. King Taizong. King Taizong. Even during the most glorious period of the ancient barons, he was invincible among his peers. Let alone in the current ancient barons, he was almost synonymous with invincibility. If King Taizong was still alive, then all the authoritative figures in the ancient barons would have come to pay their respects. Facing such a great senior, and an invincible one at that, no one would be able to remain so calm. Facing such a clamor, Yi Shiwen did not say anything more. He remained as silent as before. This caused all of the other races to feel even more fearful, extremely fearful. Of course, There were many who suspected that this so-called Emperor Taizong might not even exist at all. Otherwise, all he had to do was show his face, and he would be able to shake the entire ancient desolate realm. However, even if they had doubts in their hearts, they did not dare to use their lives to test whether it was true or not. The North Mountain clan and the Joeing clan were exterminated because they did not believe it and dared to clamor. They could not wait for someone to be the one to stand out, but they did not want to be the one to stand out. Therefore, many people were paying attention to Yi Shiwen's reply on this matter. However, Yi Shiwen did not seem to care at all. He did not even give an explanation. This kind of attitude made people unable to determine whether it was true or not. Because they could not determine whether it was true or not, they all relaxed their encroachment on the human race. Even the demon race stopped their actions. This also gave the human race a chance to breathe, a rare opportunity for peace. Previously, all the races were at loggerheads and wanted to completely annihilate the human race. Especially the North Mountain clan and the Joeing clan, they even clamored to completely annihilate the human race. However, who knew that it would develop into such a situation? All of a sudden, the world was in an uproar. However, the only thing they could be sure of was that the foundation of the human race was much deeper than they had imagined. Regardless of whether King Taizong was real or not, the fact that he was able to slaughter 2 king clans was enough to shock everyone. No one knew how much foundation the human race had. Therefore, no one dared to act recklessly. However, very soon, everyone shifted their attention to the convention of 1,000 clans. In order to resist the demon race's advance, the various clans in the antiquity finally realized that if they didn't give it their all, they would be completely defeated like the human race. By then, it would be too late to say anything. In order to fight against the demon clan, the various clans took great pains to hold this grand meeting. Before Yi Shiwen returned, this grand meeting of myriad clans was the most eye-catching event in the entire ancient wilderness. It was just that after Yi Shiwen appeared, he consecutively did several things that shook the ancient times. For a time, his limelight overshadowed the myriad clans convention. Especially when he uprooted 3 clans overnight. It shocked the world. But now, with Yi Shiwen's silence, the limelight of the myriad clans convention had once again attracted everyone's attention. The various races would decide on how to unite and fight against the demon race at this meeting. Originally, the human race had already held a meeting before, but it was ambushed by the abyssal demon lord, and in the end, it could only end in failure. But this time, being pressured step by the devil race, the various races finally lost their patience. After the devil race defeated the human race, they occupied the vast territory of the human race and transformed it into the devil domain. Moreover, they also forcibly transformed countless human devils into their vanguards. These human race were originally powerless under the rule of the human race, but after being transformed into human devils, they displayed astonishing destructive power. From then on, the power of the demon race would increase greatly. Because of this, the various races couldn't just stand by and watch. Although the demon race hadn't recovered from the severe injuries inflicted by the human race and hadn't launched a full-scale attack, they knew that it was only a matter of time before the human race launched an all-out attack on them. So, at this time, an alliance was already imperative. It was just a little different from the original situation. Originally, everyone thought that the human race had completely declined, so they didn't intend to invite the human race at all. In fact, there was no need to invite the human race at all. In their opinion, the human race's extinction was already imminent. There was no difference whether they invited or not. Moreover, many of them were also eyeing the human race covetously, so they were even more in favor of this. However, with the looming figure of King Taizong, the human race, which everyone thought had completely declined, had eliminated 3 royal clans in one go. Everyone's view of the human race had completely changed. Perhaps the human race was not as weak as everyone thought. Although it couldn't be compared with the status of the previous overlord, it wasn't necessarily that the human race would be annihilated at any time. Therefore, the human race was also allowed to participate in this grand event. For the experts of the human race, it was undoubtedly very sullen. If it was in the past, who would dare to ignore the human race in such a grand event. But now, they needed to rely on Yi Shiwen's massacre to finally have the opportunity to participate in such a grand event. Needless to say, they were very sullen in their hearts. They didn't feel anything when they really had it. When the human race was strong in the past, everything seemed so natural. But now, they could only rely on the charity of the various races and the deterrence of the legendary King Tide song to qualify to participate in this grand event. Their hearts were filled with mixed feelings. But at this time, they also knew that if the human race wanted to survive under the storm-like attack of the demon race, they might need the help of this alliance. Therefore, even if it was a chance for charity for the current human race, it was extremely precious. Although the Joeying Demon King was gnashing his teeth in hatred, Yi Shiwen didn't care about him at all. There was nothing he could do. He originally brought a few Celestial Realm Peak King level experts out to prepare for this grand event. This allowed him to escape a disaster, but at the same time, he was completely reduced to a laughingstock. When everyone mentioned him, they were disdainful. Compared to the status of the previous royal clan leader, it could be said that his status had plummeted. At this time, he finally experienced the current feelings of the human race. However, compared to the human race, the demon race was still in its heyday. Therefore, the treatment of the demon race was much better than that of the human race. Although the foundation of the demon race had been completely eradicated, there were still many experts left. And what he didn't know was that at this time, Yi Shiwen, who was gnashing his teeth in hatred, was currently in the Demon King's treasury. These days, he had not responded to the provocation of the Joeying Demon King outside. He was recuperating while quietly comprehending the way of life and death. As far as he was concerned, he had gained a lot after fighting with the King Division experts. He had also faintly touched the realm that transcended the King Division. That was a realm that could only be reached by comprehending the power of life and death. Yi Shiwen, who had the yin-yang life and death illustration, could be said to have a unique advantage compared to others. Although it was only a fragment, it still had an advantage that others couldn't compare to. Above his head, the Mingxin ancient tree continued to emit a true seven-colored divine radiance that enveloped him. At the same time, a deity appeared behind him. It sat upright under the ancient tree, and it seemed to be enlightened in its heart. This god was in the form of himself. Slowly, he opened his eyes, and there was some regret in his expression. In just a short period of half a month, he really couldn't achieve a real breakthrough. However, he had already touched that realm, and this was something worthy of celebration. This was because even many experts of the King Division hadn't been able to touch this realm. Those who were able to touch this realm were, without exception, the top experts of the King Division. With such cultivation, even in the entire ancient barrens, one could dominate. In just a short 100 years, his cultivation had already improved by leaps and bounds. Not far from where he was cultivating was where Yi Fan was cultivating. Although they hadn't seen each other for a long time, Yi Shiwen wasn't stingy with all sorts of pills for this good friend of his. Yi Fan himself was already at the peak of the Heaven Realm, and he was just a step away from entering the King level. Although the King Division was far stronger than the peak Celestial Realm experts, it wasn't a whole new realm. On the contrary, it was just a state of the peak Celestial Realm, a mysterious state. To be able to enter such a state, one would have extraordinary combat strength. This was a mysterious state, and because it wasn't a whole new realm, there weren't many things that one could truly comprehend. Yi Fan followed Yi Shiwen and the others and killed all the way. Although it was just a night, he had fought with King-level experts and he had gained a lot. If it was before the catastrophe, there would be many King-level experts in the human race. Just in the Yi family alone, there were a few of them, and there would be people to guide him. Now that there was no one to guide him, he could only rely on himself. Although the Yi family was in Qi Mountain, and although all the experts in the royal court had fallen, the books still existed. However, no matter how good the ancient books were, it wasn't as effective as the actual combat. Yi Shiwen had been on the brink of death for hundreds of years, and he had finally stepped into the king level in one go by relying on the power of the Devil's Seed. Chapter 1738. Yi Shiwen also intended to guide him to step into the king rank. Yi Fan stepping into the king rank had an extraordinary significance for both the Yi family and the human race. However, it still depended on his own breakthrough. Yi Shiwen stood up and went directly to the mountain-like Star Beast's side. He then kicked the Star Beast. What? Star Beast raised his eyelids. He was too lazy to move his body. In the past half a month, he had swallowed too many pellets. At this time, he was stuffed to death. The power of the pellets in his body had not been fully digested. These pellets were all standard grade pellets. They were rarely seen in the outside world. Therefore, even Star Beast, who was known to devour stars and live by devouring the world, could not move at this time. You haven't digested them yet? Yi Shiwen did not care about the impolite tone of Star Beast. Not yet. When I digest all these pellets, it will be enough to break through from the king rank in one fell swoop. Star Beast glanced at Yi Shiwen, then closed his eyes and said, in any case, although it was finally subdued by Yi Shiwen, it did not seem to be without benefits. Although this kid's current cultivation could not enter the eyes of Star Beast, it had to be said that his luck had never stopped. Several plans were completely destroyed by him. Even a character like King Tai Tsong could be encountered. Moreover, he also gained some benefits. He had also obtained some benefits. After digesting these dawn, he would be able to directly surpass the king rank. Unlike Yi Shiwen, he didn't have any realm barrier because he had already reached this realm. However, he had been suppressing himself for many years, and his blood essence had been drained. Now, he was like an empty body that needed to be replenished with a huge amount of essence. His cultivation would reach a higher realm as long as he digested all the dawn. That's good. Yi Shiwen nodded. In this case, he had one more trump card in his heart. He could deal with this chaotic situation with more confidence. Then, he walked to the side of the young Kuan Peng that had been eaten into a small ball and kicked it directly. Beep! 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 The young Kuan Peng was furious. He was comfortably digesting the pills in his body. Right now, he was simply a foodie. Pooh! He directly opened his mouth, and a dreadful wind power transformed into a wind blade that swept towards Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen waved his hand to block it. There was a bit of surprise in his eyes because he discovered that this young Kuanpeng had unknowingly stepped into the king grade. He couldn't help but feel like tearing up. How much effort and scheming did he spend to finally step into the peak of the celestial realm, the king realm? But this glutton actually relied on eating medicinal pills to step into the king division. Truly, everyone had different fates. Even if he had obtained these pills since he was young, he did not dare to crazily devour these pills like this foodie. Otherwise, his body would explode and he would die. Only this foodie would dare to do this. At this moment, the young Kuan Peng was jumping up and down to protest to Yi Shiwen. However, Yi Shiwen's gaze turned towards Yi Fan. Yi Fan seemed to be just a step away from the king division. Moreover, he was not far away. A mysterious aura appeared on his body. It was above the terrifying strength of a normal peak of the celestial realm. The aura on his body was getting closer and closer to the king division. Because he had similar experiences, Yi Shiwen was very clear. The aura on Yi Fan's body exploded like an atomic bomb exploding. It instantly swept in all directions. Luckily, even that little foodie Kuan Peng had already stepped into the king division, so this aura did not leave any impression on them. Ha ha ha, I have finally stepped into the king division. Yi Fan laughed out loud. When he opened his eyes, he saw Yi Shiwen in front of him. He couldn't help but feel warm in his heart. He knew that the reason why he was able to step into the king division so quickly was because he borrowed Yi Shiwen's strength. Without Yi Shiwen, if he wanted to step into the king division with his own strength, he would still need a lot of strength. However, he did not say any words of gratitude. He had never been a pretentious person. He just remembered this gratitude in his heart. All right, let's not talk about it anymore. Yi Shiwen, are you going back this time? At the convention of 1,000 clans, they bullied us because we don't have a single king division. If you go back to take charge, the situation of our human race will be greatly improved. Yi Fan looked at Yi Shiwen and said sincerely. He had already stepped into the king division. For the currently weak human race, he inevitably had to shoulder the heavy responsibility of reviving the entire human race. This was an unavoidable responsibility. However, thinking of the heavy burden on his shoulders, even Yi Fan, who had already stepped into the king division, still felt a little nervous. He was not sure if he had the ability to shoulder this heavy burden. But if Yi Shiwen went with him, everything would be different. Everything could be greatly improved. I won't go with you. I won't go with you. I still have some things to take care of. If I can make it in time, I might go with you. This matter is very important to our human tribe. No matter what, you have to obtain enough bargaining chips for our human tribe. I will let this foodie go with you. However, if there is no other way, don't force yourself. Wait for me to arrive, and we'll talk. Yi Shiwen looked at Yi Fan seriously and said, although he also wanted to go to the convention of 1,000 clans now, he knew that he had more important things to do. Whether he could lay the foundation of peace for the human race in one fell swoop depended on this move. Yi Fan nodded solemnly. Although he did not know what Yi Shiwen was going to do, he could instinctively feel that it should not be a small matter. Oh, by the way, I've been asking all this time. Is there really no king division master in the human race now? How can it be so miserable? Yi Shiwen looked at Yi Fan with a weird expression and asked, even if the king dynasty was broken, the human race shouldn't have no king division experts. Did they all die? Isn't it all because of the Wang family? When he mentioned this matter, Yi Fan couldn't help but grit his teeth in hatred. The Abyss Demon Lord attacked so urgently. The Wang family used the slogan of calling everyone to resist the Abyss Demon Lord to trick the experts into the King Dynasty, as they could use the teleportation formation to return to their ancestral lands. No one paid much attention, and all went. Who knew that it was a trap? Who knows what the Abyss Demon Lord used to actually seal the King Dynasty space tunnel? In the end, all the King Division experts died in the King Dynasty. Yi Fan gritted his teeth and his face twisted. That battle was too deep for the human race. Experts all fell in one go. Not only were there King Realm experts, but there weren't even many peak Celestial Realm experts left. It was easy to imagine how badly the human race had suffered in this battle. If it weren't for the ancestral artifacts and formations left behind by their ancestors, they might not even have been able to hold on to the Qi Mountain region. This was why all the experts of the human race were wiped out. If not, a junior like Yi Fan wouldn't be able to take control of the family. What about Yi Shukong and Yi Qianqian? Why haven't I heard anything about them? In the blink of an eye, 100 years had passed, and Yi Shiwen's news was really outdated. Yi Qianqian disappeared 100 years ago. Or rather, she came back once, but after you disappeared, she disappeared again and never appeared again. As for Yi Shukong, he stepped into peak heaven realm a few decades ago. In order to break through to King Division, he went out to travel. Who knows what cultivation he has now? He probably doesn't know that the Imperial Court has been broken through. We can't even find him now. Yi Fan sighed. In the Yi family, the most outstanding were without a doubt Yi Shiwen, Yi Shukong, Yi Qianqian, Yi Kuang, and Yi Qiong. They were seen as people with limitless futures. However, in the past 100 years, they had either been traveling or had disappeared. Although Yi Kuang and Yi Qiong had made great progress, they had only just reached the late stage of the Celestial Realm. There was still a long way to go before they reached the peak, and they had hopes of reaching the king level in the future. Chapter 1739. Last time, the convention of 1,000 clans was held on a meeting planet deep in the starry sky, but it was obstructed by the Abyssal Demon Lord. However, this time it was held in the ancient desolation. Every race knew how terrifying the Abyssal Demon Lord was. Without sufficient foundation and means, it was impossible to contend against him. The foundation of every race was in the ancient desolation. Only by standing on the ancient desolation could they have the fundamental ability to contend against the Abyssal Demon Lord. In order to show fairness, the convention of 1,000 clans was held on a super island in the Eastern Sea region. To the human race, this was simply a humiliation, because this super island was vast and boundless, spanning millions of square kilometers. It was originally the core area of the Eastern Sea region, and was once the core and sacred land of the human race in the sea region. However, following the overall decline of the human race, this place was also conquered by the Sea Clan. Although the human race in the Eastern Sea region was also powerful, they were incomparable to the Sea Clan, who had the geographical advantage. In the past, the Sea Clan was afraid of the human race, the overlord of the ancient desolation. Hence, they didn't attack the human forces that occupied the Eastern Sea region. In the Battle of the Royal Court, countless experts perished. Among them, there were many human experts in the Endless Sea region. All of a sudden, the Endless Sea region became incomparably weak. Very quickly, they were breached by the Sea Clan. After that, they reoccupied the Endless Sea region. Furthermore, more than half of the humans in the Eastern Sea region were massacred. The remaining ones returned to the ancient Barrens continent. Between the two parties, there was already a blood feud. However, at this time, they had no choice but to go to this super island to meet up. Even if there were still countless bloodstains of their compatriots on this island, there was no other way. Who asked the human race to show weakness at this time? Although the convention would only begin in a few days, there were already many experts from various races coming from all over. It was especially so for the marine race, the alliance of the 100 races, and the demons. Although they were the three major races, the biggest difference between them and the human race was that the human race's racial composition was very simple, while the other race's racial composition was very complicated. Each race was made up of countless clans, with the more powerful ones becoming royal clans, while the weaker ones were just average clans. Due to the fact that they were a single race, the human race was relatively more united than the other races. After all, they were all from the same race. This was also the fundamental reason why the human race was able to establish a foothold in the desolate antiquity and occupy the most fertile land despite the covetous eyes of the other three races. Otherwise, the human race would have long been conquered by the other three races. At this time, although most of the top experts of the human race had fallen, the experts of other levels had not suffered such serious damage. At this time, they all rushed over to witness the moment of the alliance. However, what made them sullen was that the organizer of the event, the Sea Race, simply ignored them this time. Their attitude was very cold, which was the complete opposite of their previous attitude of fear and respect. This kind of extreme change made them very uncomfortable, especially since it had only been a few decades since the royal court had been breached. Many people still remembered the glory of the past and felt even more uncomfortable. It would be great if King Taizong had really manifested. If King Taizong was here, then who would dare to look down on our human race? Even those arrogant and despotic foreign race kings would have to obediently pay their respects to him. Yes, even if he doesn't take action, just the prestige of King Taizong is enough to deter everyone. It's a pity that after that incident, both Yi Shiwen and King Taizong have disappeared. Could it be that this matter is simply fake and King Taizong doesn't exist? Or perhaps he has already passed away? Shu, you can't say this nonsense. If King Taizong doesn't exist, then could it be that the Jiuyin clan, the Northern Mountain clan, and that damned Wang clan all committed suicide? Someone hurriedly said, no matter what, the existence of Emperor Taizong was the last hope in their hearts. He was like a ray of light tearing through the endless darkness, illuminating the path forward for the human race, as if he was the beacon of light. If one were to say that King Taizong didn't exist at this time, then it would undoubtedly destroy the last bit of confidence of the human race. Humph, this is wishful thinking. King Taizong is indeed tyrannical. However, I think that Yi Shiwen has been playing tricks on him from the beginning to the end. Otherwise, why would the dignified King Taizong not dare to show his face? Some outsiders sneered. They simply couldn't believe that King Taizong was still alive. It was just as they had said. If King Taizong was still alive, then why didn't he show himself? As long as he showed himself, then all the problems would be easily solved. Unfortunately, he didn't show himself. So, it would inevitably arouse the suspicion of many people. Regarding this, the higher-ups of the major forces remained silent. They didn't want to stand out at this time. However, it didn't matter to them. Even if King Song was still alive, would he care about these insignificant people? In this regard, the experts of the human race heard this. Their faces turned red, but they couldn't refute it. In fact, even the hearts of many people were beating like drums. Whether the legendary King Song existed or not, whether he was dead or alive, this was also very important for them. However, many people would rather believe that King Song was still alive. They indeed couldn't produce the most favorable evidence, so they could only feel helpless. They couldn't help but complain in their hearts. They didn't dare to go against King Song, but they had a lot of complaints about Yi Shiwen. Since Yi Shiwen had brought the decree of King Song, why didn't he show himself? It was fine if King Song didn't show himself, but why didn't he show himself? If it wasn't for the fact that the Jiaoying clan, the Northern Mountain clan, and the Wang family had been uprooted, they wouldn't have believed that King Song really existed. However, if it wasn't King Song, how many people could have such strength? They were a little depressed. Even if it wasn't King Song, it would be good if it was any other powerful senior. It would be much better than the current situation of the human race. As one of the three existing overlords of the ancient barons, the sea race was naturally very proud. They wouldn't even look at ordinary experts who came. This was the same for the demon race, the alliance of the 100 races, and the human race. They didn't show favoritism to anyone, but it was especially obvious for the human race. Not to mention the higher-ups. Not even a single disciple or clansman came to lead the way. They were just clothes. They were just here to buy soy sauce. It was already very good that they didn't chase them out. This made the human race gnash their teeth in hatred. However, there was nothing they could do. Among all the clans present, the human race was the most embarrassed. All the other clans had sent their king-level experts, but the human race was still alone. Not a single king-level expert had arrived. Without a king-level expert, it was useless to say anything. In the current ancient barons, only the one with the biggest fist had the right to speak. Another king-level expert has arrived. At that moment, there was a sudden commotion in the crowd. Some of the higher-ups of the sea race flew out from the void and were seen by the crowd. Generally speaking, the ordinary experts of the various clans would naturally be received by the disciples of the sea race. The higher-ups of the sea race would have to be sent to the king-level experts of the various royal clans. Only these king-level experts were qualified to have these higher-ups personally come out. That's not the demon race, nor the royal clan of the alliance of the 100 races. It's actually the sea race? What's going on? The sea race has come on their own, but the higher-ups of the sea race have to go and receive them? And it's not just one or two of them. Just what is the background of this sea race? Someone quickly recognized that the higher-ups of the sea race were not going to receive the people of the other two clans, but the sea race themselves. It was an extremely handsome man with a tall stature. From head to toe, he exuded a noble aura akin to that of a god. His eyes were like a pair of stars, incomparably deep. Wherever his gaze landed, it was as if he could see through everything. This man, who was in his 20s, walked out of the void step by step. Every step he took covered a great distance. He was originally outside the island, but now, with just a few steps, he had already arrived at the venue of the internal meeting. His profound skills were astonishing. However, the unique aura of the sea race emanating from his body made people recognize that he was a member of the sea race. However, to everyone's surprise, this man took a step forward and arrived above the many experts of the human race. A powerful aura was released, directly crushing the bodies of the experts of the human race. He looked down on the many experts of the human race like a high and mighty king, looking down on his subjects who were like ants. He was extremely arrogant. This was a blatant humiliation. Many of the experts of the human race could clearly feel that this powerful aura was directed at them. To the human race, this was a complete humiliation. Yes, it was a humiliation. He was bullying them because they had no way to fight back, and they were indeed powerless to do so. This handsome man was simply too powerful. Just the aura that he emanated was enough to make them lose the will to fight back. So, the human race is only left with these mediocre people now? What a joke. How dare you call yourself an overlord? That's all there is to it. I heard that the human race has a son of God. I wonder if he's here today?" He glanced at the human race with an extremely arrogant expression. "Umph." The man sneered, his chi crushed down bit by bit. His mountain-like chi instantly bombarded the bodies of the humans. The people of the human race suddenly felt a terrifying force crushing their bodies. Their bones were being crushed bit by bit, emitting a violent grinding sound. Damn it, how can he be so strong? The warriors of the human race also erupted with their imposing auras, wanting to resist, but it was useless. Their imposing auras were directly crushed like a hot knife through butter. Bang! A cultivator's legs went soft, and he knelt down on the spot. Then his legs were like iron as they smashed into the ground. He knelt down completely, both his legs sinking into the ground, making a loud rumbling sound. Bang! 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 Following that, a group of human warriors were also forced to kneel down one after another. A large number of them knelt down. It was a spectacular sight. Ha ha, look. Weren't these human race warriors very arrogant before? Now, they're kneeling on the ground like a bunch of dogs. Exactly. How dare they be so arrogant? Who do they think they are? King Taitsong, you're ruthless. If that King Taitsong really exists, then let him come out. The experts of various races laughed mockingly. In the past, no one would have dared to be so rude to the human race. Although the human race was divided into many forces, they had to unite against a foreign enemy at this time. However, there wasn't even a single King Division expert among the human race to hold the fort. Although many of the spectating alien races were laughing at the human race, there were even more people, especially the experts of the 100 Race Alliance and the Demon Race, who were looking at the man in surprise. They were shocked to find that the man's strength was terrifyingly tyrannical. He had definitely stepped into the King Division. The most frightening thing was that the man from the Sea Race was very young at a glance. He didn't look like an expert of the older generation at all. Among the younger generation, someone had already stepped into the King Division. This news had undoubtedly given a lot of people on the scene a lot of excitement. For them, they might not have the opportunity to step into the King Division in their lifetime. However, this person had already stepped into the King Division at such a young age. This had given them a lot of excitement. What did the King Division mean? It meant that one was at the pinnacle of the entire antiquity. Only by stepping into the King Division could one truly have a position in the antiquity that belonged to them. Who is this Sea Race? How could he be so strong? I've seen a King Division expert in action before, but he couldn't compare to this man at all. Why is he in River Sun? Someone asked. Even if the people present were not celestial paragons, they were all experts at the 8th or 9th heavens of the celestial paragons. These experts had very rich combat experience, so how could they not tell that this young man wasn't simple? Otherwise, how could the higher-ups of the Sea Race personally go and greet him? In the past, they would only receive such treatment when they met King Division experts. They wouldn't even be sent out to greet celestial paragons who were below the King Division. However, now that they thought about it, it wasn't just because he was a King Division expert that the higher-ups of the Sea Race personally came to greet him. There was probably more to it than meets the eye. He's Haiwia? Hiss. I suddenly remember. Suddenly, someone remembered. Haiwia, it really is him. I told you, I still remember the legends. Several decades ago, the Sea Tribe gave birth to a peerless genius called Haiwia. But ever since Haiwia was born, there has been no news of him. Originally, I thought it was all nonsense. Who would have thought that I would actually see him again? The doubts in everyone's hearts grew even deeper. Haiwia. This name was also very unfamiliar to people like them who had seen many things. It could even be said that they had never heard of him. However, it was such a person who completely suppressed the entire human race with terrifying pressure. Moreover, the higher-ups of the Sea Race personally went to greet him. This wasn't something that an ordinary person could do. He definitely had a mysterious background. I think the human race is just SOSO. At this time, Haiwuya sneered and just looked coldly at the crowd of the human race. Seeing them kneeling at his feet, he didn't have the slightest expression on his face. It's not good for you to look down on the human race like this. Suddenly, a frivolous voice was heard. Then, a violent figure descended from the sky. A shocking saber light cut through the sky and slashed fiercely at Hai Wuya. Hai Wuya took a few steps, and his figure suddenly disappeared. Boom! However, an incomparably loud rumble was heard, and the entire world shook as if the entire super celestial island was about to collapse. Countless clouds of smoke and dust swept up. What? What's going on? What a terrifying saber light. What's going on? Who did it? Could it be that there's someone hidden among the human race? Everyone focused their eyes and saw through the layers of smoke and dust that it was a young man in cyan clothes. He looked to be about 15 or 16 years old. His body was shining with brilliant lights, and he had a terrifying aura. On his shoulder, there was a huge saber that was almost as tall as his entire body. Who is this? Someone asked. Yi Wudi, it's Yi Wudi. At this moment, someone from the demon race immediately recognized the young man in cyan clothes. Compared to the mysterious Hai Wuya, Yi Wudi could be said to be a household name in the demon race. As a peerless demon genius who had risen to prominence more than 200 years ago, his reputation could be said to have been achieved through battle after battle and the corpses of countless people. Many famous people who had been famous for many years also died in his hands, making him famous. His status in the demon race was like Yi Shiwen in the human race. Yi Wudi, it's you? Hai Wuya narrowed his eyes and looked at the young man in cyan clothes. Yi Wudi's eyes were quite unfriendly, flashing with killing intent. That's right, it's me. Yi Wudi grinned and said, What are you trying to do? Do you want to start an all-out war with me? Hai Wuya said coldly as he looked at Yi Wudi. Only now did many people realize that Hai Wuya and Yi Wudi had secretly interacted with each other without anyone knowing. What's the big deal about a war? Yi Wudi smiled faintly. Do you also want to protect the human race? Hai Wuya looked at Yi Wudi and said. His tone did not change because of Yi Wudi's words. Both of them seemed to be on the same level. So what if I do? So what if I don't? Yi Wudi sneered. Light flickered within his body, making him look like a god that had fallen into the mortal world. Chapter 1741. Yi Wudi's unexpected appearance and his confrontation with Hai Wuya, who had just come out, immediately attracted the attention of countless people. It was undoubtedly very sensational, especially for the people of the demon clan, who were very excited to see Yi Wudi. Yi Wudi was very famous, but he always appeared and disappeared mysteriously. No one knew what his background was, especially since many people had only heard of him, but had never seen him in person. Therefore, when they saw Yi Wudi at this moment, many people were very excited. What do you mean by this? Are you really going to protect the human clan? Rays of blue light on Hai Wuya's body protected him. Facing an expert like Yi Wudi, even he had to be nervous. I don't mean anything else. I just don't like you. Yi Wudi grinned. He was somewhat frivolous, but also had a bit of killing intent. His body carried a frightening aura as he coldly looked at Hai Wuya in front of him. Hai Wuya's expression suddenly changed slightly. He was not as indifferent to the people of the human clan as he was just now. Yi Wudi, you are too arrogant. Do you really think I won't kill you? Hai Wuya said firmly. However, everyone could see that Hai Wuya was a bit afraid of Yi Wudi. Otherwise, he would have already attacked. Kill you? Of course you will. Yi Wudi sneered disdainfully. Do you think I don't know? Over the past few decades, it's not the first time you've incited people to kill me. Now, before we enter the profound world, I want to settle this once and for all with you. Let's see if your bullshit father will come and save you. As Yi Wudi spoke, his aura gradually became stronger. With an astonishing aura, he confronted Hai Wuya. At this moment, the experts of the human clan who had no choice but to kneel under Hai Wuya's aura were finally relieved. They could finally take a breather. At this moment, they looked at Yi Wudi's tyrannical figure with gratitude. Although they did not know why Yi Wudi would save them, it was because of this that they could not go wrong. When everyone heard this, they could not help but be shocked. Not only had both sides been anxious for a long time, but they also seemed to have a deep hatred for each other. Hiwaya had actually encouraged people to kill Yiwudi. It would be strange if Yiwudi could endure this kind of hatred. In particular, the experts of the demon clan looked at the experts of the sea clan with obvious indignant expressions. The people of the sea clan actually wanted to kill the young geniuses of the demon clan. Although there were many people in the demon clan who did not like Yiwudi and wanted to get rid of him, this was an internal matter of the demon clan. How could they allow someone to attack their geniuses? At this time, the experts of the clan were also very helpless. At this moment, the experts of the clan felt that they had no idea. However, even so, none of them dared to say anything. Neither of these two people seemed to be people that they could interfere with. Yiwudi had an illustrious reputation in the demon clan. His origin was mysterious. Before he became so tyrannical, there were already big shots of the demon clan who wanted to attack him. However, in the end, they all died without any results. There was only one reason why they died without any results. That was these big shots of the demon clan who wanted to attack him or had already attacked him all died tragically in their own secret chambers, no matter where they hid. Although they could not find out who did it in the end, everyone knew that Yiwudi was not ordinary. Although they did not know what his background was, it was obvious that he was not ordinary either. On the other side, Hiwaya was tyrannical. He was even personally received by the upper echelons of the Sea clan. He was obviously not ordinary. Moreover, both of them could be said to be giants of a region. Either of them could be said to be an existence that could summon the wind and summon the rain in the Antiquity era. They were famous experts in the Antiquity era. "Take this, my beautiful strike." Yiwudi laughed out loud. The incomparably huge steel blade in his hand directly slashed down. The dazzling blade light drew a huge crack in the void as it trembled crazily. "You're courting death. How dare you attack the young master?" Suddenly, at this moment, a figure directly tore through the void. An incomparably huge iron hand directly tore through the void, bringing with it a terrifying might as it directly grabbed towards Yiwudi. King Division. It's actually another King Division expert. Many people immediately cried out in surprise. There was actually another King Division expert hiding in the void. However, thinking about it, if it was not a King Division expert, how could he hide in the void without being discovered by experts like them? One must know that although there were no King Division experts among them, there were still many Celestial Realm experts. Only an expert of the King Division would be able to make them completely unaware of his presence. However, this terrifying expert turned out to be Hiwaya's subordinate. More importantly, he was not a human, but a member of the 100 Races Alliance. Many people recognized him. Even if such an expert returned to the 100 Races Alliance, he would still be qualified to be an ancestor of a region. Even the 10 royal clans of the 100 Races Alliance would treat him as a distinguished guest. Such a person was actually a servant under Hiwaya. Everyone couldn't help but be astonished by this. King Division experts were world-shaking existences, and they all had their own pride. However, they were actually willing to become someone else's slave. This was a very inconceivable thing in their eyes. "Old man, you think you can do it?" The momentum of Yiwudi's blade didn't slow down at all. He slashed down horizontally, cutting through the entire space and colliding with the old servant. Clang! Then, an earth-shattering roar was heard. Following that, an endless power swept out in an instant. The old man's palm was directly cut open, and a huge flower of blood bloomed. In an instant, he retracted his attack. Just a moment ago, he had attacked aggressively, but with just one slash, his momentum was completely broken. He was not a match for Yiwudi at all. So powerful. He has really stepped into the King Division. Among the monsters, some experts could not help but mutter in disbelief. They had all watched Yiwudi grow step by step, but they still did not expect that he would step into the King Division in just a few hundred years after he was born. It's really too terrifying, and he's not an ordinary King tier expert. This old man has obviously stepped into the peak of the Celestial Realm, but he was forced back with one move. "When I fight with him, you'd better get as far away from me as you can. I don't have such a good temper all the time. I remember that you fought with me before. I almost lost my life in that battle. I still remember this grudge. However, I'm too lazy to bother with you. I'll settle the score with him directly. TSK, TSK. Woody looked at the old man disdainfully and said, Woody looked at the old man disdainfully and said, I didn't expect you to also grow to such an amazing level. The old man looked at Woody with a somewhat complicated expression. Haiwuya had just made his debut a few decades ago, but it had been a long time since he had attacked Woody. He had watched Woody grow from a little guy who was nothing to the point where he couldn't even touch him. Haiwuya was extremely shocked. So what? Don't you know my identity? Otherwise, you wouldn't have spent so much effort to kill me. Unfortunately, you didn't succeed, Woody said coldly. On the other hand, this guy's growth speed is really amazing. In just a few decades, he has already stepped back into the king level. I don't know how many treasures of heaven and earth he has eaten. Woody's gaze turned to Haiwuya. This was his real target, and only Haiwuya was worthy of being his true opponent. I originally didn't want to care about the grudges of my father's generation. Everything has already turned into smoke. However, since you traitors are still pestering me, don't blame me. I'm no longer at the level where you can attack me as you wish. Woody's handsome face looked somewhat sinister. As expected, you actually grew to such an extent. I still underestimated you, the old man said while panting violently. His eyes were filled with incomparable shock. Woody looked at Haiwuya and said, This is nothing. Forget it. This is something you will never be able to truly understand. You didn't expect me to come back, did you? Not only did I come back alive, but I also stepped into the king division. How about it? Do you want to fight again? Last time, you tried to kill me because you were already at the king division, but you failed. I'm sure you won't back down today. No matter how much you've grown, you are no match for me. Haiwuya's expression returned to normal. He was completely confident again. Didn't you spend hundreds of years to recover to this extent? How dare you compete with me? Hundreds of years? Ha 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 ha! Woody burst into laughter. You have no idea what I've been through in the past hundreds of years. Compared to you, who have enjoyed the resources left behind by your father's generation, I have indeed spent a lot more time. However, what I've truly learned is something that you will never understand in your lifetime. Woody's gaze sharpened. He was about to attack again. Humph. You humans can only rely on the protection of the Monster Clan now? What a joke. The overlord of the past is just so, Haiwuya said while looking at these people. The people of the human clan were ashamed and angry, but there was nothing they could do. There was nothing they could do. You're right. The dignity of the human clan needs to be defended by us. Chapter 1742. Before he could finish his sentence, a figure descended from the sky. Yi Fan, one of the rising geniuses of the Yi family, Yi Fan. At this moment, a human race expert recognized Yi Fan. When Yi Fan rose up, the entire human race had already fallen. This was why the various races didn't pay much attention to what geniuses the human race had then. In fact, many people believed that the human race was doomed to decline. In fact, it was even possible that the human race would be exterminated. Therefore, there was no point in paying attention to them anymore. They wouldn't be able to attract the attention of the entire ancient desolation like Yi Shiwen. Who do you think you are to talk to me? Haiwuya laughed coldly and waved his hand. A huge wave of energy swept out, and a huge waterspout appeared, heading towards Yi Fan. Hu Chi! Just as everyone was worried for Yi Fan, they saw a terrifying suction force appear in the air. The waterspout was sucked in by a round, unknown bird-life form beside Yi Fan. After that, the round, bird-like life form burped, as if it was not satisfied yet. Everyone was stunned. They didn't expect that Haiwuya's attack would be resolved so easily. Although Haiwuya didn't use his full strength, and it was just a casual attack, with his king-rank strength, even a casual attack could easily crush a peak celestial realm expert and heavily injure them. Where did this bird come from? Many people looked at this little bird, wondering where it came from. Its appearance was way too weird. In the minds of many people, there were many ferocious birds or divine birds in the ancient legends. But no matter how they looked at it, there didn't seem to be any existence that was similar to this ferocious bird. The people who came were Yi Fan and Little Kuan Peng. Little Kuan Peng had just swallowed the water element laws in the water spout and seemed like it hadn't had enough. At this moment, he was just the size of 2 fists. His stomach was round and he looked really cute. However, he didn't have the aura of a Kuan Peng at all. He wasn't as huge as his mother either. It was like he had mutated. Interesting. I want to see what this thing is. Hai Weia laughed coldly and grabbed towards Little Kuan Peng. Little Kuan Peng saw Hai Weia suddenly attack and instantly cried out in rage like he was complaining about how despicable Hai Weia was. Boom! With a loud bang, Hai Weia did not manage to grab the young Kuan Peng. Instead, he was stopped by Yi Fan. What? Hai Weia's attack was actually suppressed. Someone looked at Yi Fan in shock. Without a doubt, Hai Weia had already stepped into the king tier and could be considered a top-notch expert. Every move he made contained great power. However, he didn't expect that he would suffer a small loss against Yi Fan and the bird. First, he couldn't do anything to this strange bird, and now, Yi Fan easily blocked his attack. In the eyes of many, it was completely unbelievable. Could it be that he has stepped into the king grade as well? Many people were extremely shocked. If it was only Hai Weia and Yi Wudi who had stepped into the king division, it would be fine. With the deep foundation of the Demon Clan and the Sea Clan, it was not strange at all for them to have such achievements. However, the Human Clan had now declined to such a state. Even among the older generation, there was not a single king grade expert, let alone the younger generation. If it were Yi Shukong or Yi Shiwen, they would have already been famous geniuses in the world, so it would be fine. However, Yi Fan had not been famous before. Although he had risen in recent years, in the eyes of many people, he was still a junior. He was still a newcomer among the newcomers. Compared to the complicated feelings of the various clans, many experts of the Human Clan at this time felt like crying tears of joy. In the past, they might not have known whether or not there were king-grade experts in the Human Clan. After all, even if there were, they would be from noble families, and it had nothing to do with them. However, it was different now. The support of any king-grade expert was very precious to the current Human Clan. In the past few decades, although there were king-grade experts who had good relations with the Human Clan in the past who spoke up for the Human Clan and helped the Human Clan when they were in danger several times, they were not truly from their own clan after all. It was impossible for them to fight to the death with other hostile forces for the Human Clan. That was absolutely impossible. However, the appearance of Yi Fan directly filled the gap in this aspect. At this time, for the Human Clan, he seemed even more precious. Although there were rumors that Yi Shiwen had already stepped into the peak celestial realm, the king grade, rumors were just rumors. However, gossip was gossip after all. It hadn't been substantiated. Moreover, many people had been paying attention to Yi Shiwen since a long time ago. In fact, they had been paying attention to him since 100 years ago. If this was the case, then Yi Shiwen's growth in the past 100 years was truly astonishing. At that time, he had not yet stepped into the celestial realm. Now that he had actually reached such a level, it was naturally completely different. You do have some skills. At this time, Hai Weia sneered and looked at Yi Fan. Yi, you are really annoying. I didn't expect the Human Clan to actually have a king-grade expert. Forget it, I will kill you too, and directly cut off the hope of the Human Clan. Hai Weia's voice carried a bit of contempt as he said this. It seemed as if he did not put the Human Clan in his eyes at all. However, he indeed had the qualifications to do so. Not to mention the current Human Clan, even the Human Clan at its peak would not be easy to deal with a king-grade expert. Whoosh! In an instant, Hai Weia directly attacked. The energy in the sky directly twisted and turned into a huge, dazzling light that went straight towards Yi Fan. Boom! Hai Weia's attack was like a mountain, crushing Yi Fan's body. Yi Fan's body was boiling with a strong fighting spirit. The terrifying strength that belonged to the king grade was completely displayed at this moment. He also directly blasted out a punch, sweeping towards Hai Weia's attack. Rumble! A series of explosions rang out. Countless sparks flew, creating a terrifying energy storm. Thump, thump, thump. Yi Fan took a few steps back, and some blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. He expressionlessly looked at Hai Wuya and said, I didn't expect your strength to be even stronger than I imagined. Who are you? Why do you want to be enemies with the human clan? So what if I am enemies with the human clan? In the distant mythological era, you humans were nothing. You were just our slaves. Now that slaves want to climb up to their masters, it is just a matter of beating them a few times. I will let you see clearly why you can only be slaves. Hai Wuya's words were filled with strong confidence and righteousness. This was completely different from the current Sea Clan. In the early years, the human clan was slaves and food. Many people knew this. It was not a secret. It was said that the ancestors of the human clan were abducted from another world by the monster clan and the Sea Clan. Therefore, their status was very low in the beginning. However, after the fall of all the gods and the dusk of the gods, the human clan rose rapidly. Now they have dominated the desolate era for many years. Even though the human clan had declined in recent years, no Sea Clan dared to say such words. Even at this point, no one dared to completely look down on the human clan. Otherwise, they would not have wanted to destroy the human clan. This was the power that the human clan had accumulated over the years. That was already a long time ago. Are you still immersed in the glory of that time? How ridiculous. Now, who still wants to turn the human clan into slaves? Let him try. Yi Fan sneered. The glory of the past? Very soon it will come true. Hai Wuya said indifferently that Yi Shukong called himself the son of God. How ridiculous. With his little bloodline, he dares to call himself the son of God? Only I deserve to be called the son of God, because I am the real son of God. Hai Wuya's tone was calm, as if he was saying something natural. Everyone was shocked. The son of God? If Yi Shukong was called the son of God because he had awakened a part of the bloodline of the gods, then this person was the real son of God. This immediately shocked countless people. It was unbelievable. That's impossible. He must be lying. There are no documented deities in the remote antiquity. This is impossible. If deities don't exist, how can there be a son of God? Even if he's the descendant of those fallen deities, that's something that happened in the mythological era. The mythological era is too far away from the present. Even if he's a son of God, it's impossible for him to live until now. Someone immediately responded. Because of this, even if it was only the descendants of the gods who had awakened a part of the gods' bloodline, they would still be called the son of God because the real son of God did not exist. That's right. This is impossible. Even the gods have fallen. How can there be a son of God? You stupid mortals, what do you know? When Hai Wuya heard these words, he couldn't help but sneer. How could these mortals understand the means of the gods? Although some people still couldn't believe it, some experts came to a sudden realization. Perhaps this was not impossible, because this was the only way to explain why the higher-ups of the Sea Clan would personally go out to meet an expert of the Sea Clan. As the host, it was unreasonable for them to do so. If he was the son of God, then everything would make sense. I don't care who you are. If you want to humiliate the human clan, you have to ask me first, Yi Fan said coldly. Chapter 1743. Did I ask you? You? Hai Wuya laughed coldly as he took a step forward. With a loud bang, a terrifying aura gushed forth from his body. Everyone present could feel the terrifying power. Even though it wasn't directed at them, they could still feel the terrifying pressure pressing down on them. Many people couldn't help but feel a chill run down their spines. It wasn't directed at them. If it was directed at them, would they be able to withstand it? Even if it was just a guess, they could still feel that they might not be able to withstand it. The strength of a king-ranked expert was far beyond their imagination. Wallalala! The terrifying aura caused Yi Fan's clothes to flutter in the wind. It was as if a steel knife was constantly scraping his face. His expression was slightly distorted. This terrifying aura crushed his body. Only then could he feel how terrifying Hai Wuya was. Most of Hai Wuya's aura was directed at him. The others were just affected by it. The difference between them couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. Yi Fan was also a king-ranked expert. He could already feel that it was difficult for him to resist the aura. It was different from Yi Wudi, who could easily resist the aura. He could clearly feel the difference between him and Hai Wuya. The experts of the various races felt their hearts pounding wildly. There was no need to mention Hai Wuya's strength. It had completely surpassed the limits of their imagination. But even Yi Fan's strength was completely above everyone else's. It was extremely terrifying. This was a king-ranked expert. The hearts of these people were greatly shaken. In the past, they had only heard about battles between King Division experts. But now, they truly realized that no matter how much they had overestimated King Division experts in the past, they had still underestimated them. In the middle of the confrontation between the two auras, the space was completely distorted. It was as if two terrifying forces were pulling at it. The scene of the distorted space was extremely terrifying. Yi Fan looked a little serious and distorted at this moment. However, Hai Wuya looked relaxed and relaxed. It was obvious that this kind of confrontation wasn't a problem for him. Beep! Suddenly, just as the two of them were exchanging blows, a cry came from the young Kuan Ping's mouth. Then, the cry turned into a terrifying blade of qi that cut through the air and slashed towards Hai Wuya. How dare you sneak attack His Highness? At that moment, the old servant of the 100 Clan Alliance finally made a move. He grabbed the blade of air with one hand. Bang! There was a muffled groan that sounded like metal colliding. Yi Wudi's saber had only injured his palm, but now, it was completely cut in half. Her fingers were cut off, and blood gushed out like a pillar. How? How is this possible? Did I see it wrong? Everyone looked at the Kuanping in a daze. They didn't even blink their eyes. They were afraid that they would see through it. They still couldn't believe it. How could it be? It was only the size of 2 fists. It looked like a harmless little bird. How could it be so terrifying? Although the old servant was just a servant, he was a master at the King Division. A master at this level had been trained to the extreme, and his body was as hard as metal and stone. Even Yi Wudi's saber chi just now could only injure him, but not directly cut him in half. However, this little bird had done it. Where did it come from? At that moment, the Kuanping was already unrecognizable. It looked like a glutton, so no one could recognize it for a while. I must have seen it wrong. This little bird is so terrifying. The surroundings immediately burst into an uproar. Not to mention them, even the old servant stared blankly at his palm that was spurting out blood like a pillar. He didn't dare to believe that his body, which was comparable to metal and stone, was actually so easily injured. Interesting indeed. Yi Wudi was just about to make a move. Who knew that the little guy would subdue a large group of people as soon as he made a move? That should be the Kuanping. His eyes were sharp, and he was very knowledgeable. Even though he had never seen such a fat young Kuanping, he still recognized it immediately. He was full of doubts, but now that he thought about it, the only person who could make the little Kuanping appear was that person. The Kuanping's appetite was almost comparable to that of a Tao Dai. However, no matter how much it ate, it could be digested. Therefore, it was impossible for its body to be out of shape. Who knew how many treasures of heaven and earth that it could not digest to become so fat? Beep, beep, beep. Little Kuanping stood on Yi Fan's shoulder with his chest puffed out. He looked really cocky as he looked at Hai Wuya in disdain. Hai Wuya's expression changed slightly. It was fine if it was Yi Wudi, but he was actually being looked down upon by a bird. Humph. He snorted coldly again, and his aura swept out. It was even more powerful than before. Thump! Yi Fan took a step back and barely managed to withstand the sudden increase in his aura. Although he only took a step back, it was clear that his strength was still a little weaker than Hai Wuya's when he went all out. But at this moment, no matter what, he could only grit his teeth and endure. Now that Yi Shiwen was not here, he was the only one who could shoulder the burden of the human race. He was the only celestial realm expert that represented the human race on the surface. If he failed, then the blow to the human race would undoubtedly be a fatal one. The despair of grasping on a hope and then being cut off was 100 times, 1,000 times more terrifying than being in despair all the time. Beep! The little Kuanping was furious when it saw that Hai Wuya still dared to challenge it. It spat out a wind blade. Although it looked like a very childish move and only had wind blades, no one dared to underestimate this wind blade. But now, no one dared to underestimate this wind blade. Just now, it was this wind blade that had directly cut off a king great expert's finger. And this was because only his hand had been touched. If his body had been touched, even that old servant of the king Tyr would not have been able to escape death at this moment. Whoosh! This wind blade directly broke through Hai Wuya's aura. The terrifying aura that filled the sky instantly disappeared without a trace. Then, the wind blade directly forced Hai Wuya. Hai Wuya's body disappeared on the spot and escaped into the alternate space. When he reappeared, he had already moved 500 meters. He looked at the little Kuenping with a serious expression, as if he had met a strong opponent. So strong, this little bird is so strong. Just now, only Yiwudi forced Hai Wuya to retreat. Now that this little bird did it too, doesn't that prove that he is not weaker than Yiwudi? Someone muttered to himself. Although it was just a guess, to many people, it still seemed a little ridiculous. Who dares to cause trouble at the convention of 1,000 clans? At this time, in the void, dozens of figures leaped out at the same time. They were all terrifying king stage experts. These were the representatives of the major forces. They also represented the forces that could really be on the stage. Many forces that did not even have king stage experts were not qualified to be ranked at the top at all. In the current ancient desolation, the demon race was naturally the strongest. Then, there were the three great overlords in the ancient Phoenix world. Under these forces, there were many other forces. Among them, the forces that could be ranked at the top would definitely have a king tier expert overseeing them. This had almost become an unspoken rule. Although the human clan still had a large number of experts, a very deep foundation, and a huge number of members, there was not a single king stage expert in charge. Therefore, they had almost been excluded from the circle of the core forces. If it wasn't for the fact that they were afraid of King Taitsong, who no one knew whether he existed or not, they would not even have the right to participate at this time. Dozens of Celestial Realm Pinnacle and King Stage experts appeared at the scene in one go. This instantly shocked countless experts present. These dozens of Celestial Realm Pinnacle and King Stage experts were usually not easy to see. Now that there was a large group of them here, the shock in everyone's heart was simply unparalleled. Although they knew that they would meet those top King Stage experts here to participate in the meeting, they did not expect to meet them under such circumstances, and in a group at that. The dreadful coercion of dozens of King grade experts. Even though each of them had only leaked a little bit of it, it was still a dreadful, oppressive feeling for the experts below the King grade. It felt as if the sky had fallen down on them. It felt as if it would fall on them at any time. How terrifying! There are so many King grade experts keeping watch here. It seems like this alliance meeting is really going to happen. Yeah, these King Stage experts should be the representatives of the major forces. Among them, there are even many leaders of the forces who came personally. Yet every one of them is as powerful as a god. According to such a lineup, even if the Abyss Demon Lord came, he should not be able to win. This time, we should be able to hold a good meeting. Chapter 1744. Everyone feared the Deep Abyss Demon Lord. The last meeting was led by the human race, and they were ambushed by the Deep Abyss Demon Lord. In the end, they suffered heavy casualties. That time, they established the Deep Abyss Demon Lord's name. If it wasn't for the fact that the various races had foundations and were able to hold on, they would have been wiped out long ago. Human race, you actually dare to cause trouble. At this time, a king grade expert stood out, and without distinguishing between right and wrong, he directly blamed the human race. At this moment, the experts of the human race all felt a sense of humiliation. It was clearly not their fault. Yet, they were the first ones to be blamed. They were the weak and had no right to speak in the ancient desolate era. Our human race won't cause trouble, but if someone wants to bully us, we won't just let them be. At this moment, Yifan took a step forward and said without giving in. As the only expert at the king level present, he knew that he couldn't back down at this moment. He was representing the human race. Preposterous. You are just a junior, and you actually dare to be rude to me. This king rank expert had an aged face. It was unknown how many thousands of years he had lived. In front of him, Yi Fan could only be considered a junior. If it was before, he wouldn't dare to be so rude to a human race expert. At that time, the human race was still a huge being. Even a normal celestial realm expert was an existence that those small races couldn't afford to offend, even if he was a king rank expert. However, he could only lower his voice to those celestial realm experts and think that their race was too weak. But now, the situation had changed. The arrogant human race had fallen to the point where they didn't even have a single king rank expert. Suddenly, they became the masters, so naturally. He had many grievances in his heart. At this time, even if it wasn't the human race's problem, he would say that it was. He also believed that this was what the other giants were thinking. The human race was just too much of a hindrance in this world. The king-tier old man immediately made his move. With a loud bang, he grabbed at Yi Fan. He was so confident that he wouldn't care about Yi Fan's counterattack at all. How could a mere junior dare to act tough in front of him? Beep! Those who were present heard a familiar chirp, and their hearts tightened. Just now, they had already seen how terrifying the owner of the chirp was. Even if it was just a weird bird that they couldn't recognize, it was still extremely terrifying at this moment. Poochie! Everyone only saw a flash in front of their eyes. They didn't see clearly what had happened at all. They only saw the arm of this king-grade expert from a small clan explode on the spot. Blood splattered, bone fragments swirled, and flesh and blood splattered all over the sky. Ah! Suddenly, the old man screamed in pain as his entire arm exploded on the spot. If he had not hurriedly adjusted his body at the most crucial moment and avoided the fatal blow, his entire body would have exploded on the spot. His back was drenched in cold sweat, and his heart was filled with shock. He stared at the strange-looking bird on Yi Fan's shoulder with wide eyes. This thing that he had never cared about before was actually so terrifying. Even some of the weaker king rank experts were like those celestial realm experts. They could only see a flash in front of their eyes, and the king rank expert's arm suddenly explode. They couldn't help but be shocked and filled with disbelief. At this moment, everyone started to look at the human race again. Before this, they were just like the king rank expert. They didn't put the human race in their eyes at all. If they wanted to kill, they would kill. If they wanted to attack, they would attack. There was no room for doubt at all. At this moment, everyone began to reevaluate the human race. Previously, they were just like the old man. They did not take the current human race seriously at all. If they wanted to kill, they would kill. If they wanted to attack, they would attack. There was no room for doubt at all. But what happened just now suddenly made them realize that the human race wasn't that weak. It wasn't to the point where they could easily bully them. Let's talk nicely. Why are you human race causing trouble here at this time? Are you really going to ignore the rules of the meeting of 1,000 races? At this moment, a king rank expert stood out and said, although it was still a question, his tone was undoubtedly much better than before. Obviously, he was also very afraid of the king rank expert. Why are you causing trouble here? I think you are mistaken about one thing. The one causing trouble here is not us, but this guy. Yi Fan pointed at Hai Wuya with an unfriendly expression. He was not a shrewd person. Whatever he had on his mind, he would show it all on his face. He hated Hai Wuya to the extreme, but he couldn't show his fear. If Yi Shiwen was here, what would he do? He didn't know. Perhaps he would bear with it for a while, or perhaps he would fight back even more forcefully. But he had his own methods, and he wouldn't allow anyone to be arrogant in front of him. At this time, everyone's eyes turned to Hai Wuya. Many people could see that he was a member of the Sea Clan, but they couldn't understand. Logically speaking, as the organizer, why would a member of the Sea Clan take the lead to break the rules? This was completely incomprehensible. Facing the puzzled gazes of the Demon Clan and the 100 Races Alliance, the experts of the Sea Clan either didn't know Hai Wuya's identity, or they couldn't do anything even if they knew. They could only smile. They couldn't control this little brat at all. He wasn't someone they could afford to offend. Didn't they see that even the old servant beside him was a king rank expert? Was this a show of extravagance that an ordinary person could have? I can prove this, Yi Wudi said with a smile. He waved the big saber in his hand twice, bringing with it the sound of the wind. Some of the king-rank experts of the demon clan also knew Yi Wudi, and they were a little puzzled as to why Yi Wudi would testify for this human race. At this time, these experts who came here aggressively suddenly felt a little awkward. This matter was started by Hai Wuya. However, it seemed that they didn't have any intention to punish Hai Wuya. Moreover, there was no need for them to do so. Hai Wuya glanced at Yi Wudi and said, "I'm just testing their limits. I started out late, so I haven't seen the experts of the human race yet. It wasn't easy for a king-rank expert to appear, but this is all he's got. He's still far from it." Hai Wuya said coldly. He seemed to be defending himself, but he didn't seem to care at all. "So what if I attack first? What can you do to me?" Hai Wuya's words were unintentional, but the experts of the various races present were all shocked. The human race actually had a king-rank expert again? This was not good news for the various races. They originally thought that the human race had completely declined, but who knew that in just a few decades, another king-rank expert had appeared. The human race's foundation was really deep and unimaginable, especially the leaders of the small races. They were also extremely bitter at this time. They had worked hard for many years to cultivate a king-rank expert, and they even needed to use the strength of the whole race. Even so, they couldn't guarantee that a king-rank expert would appear in every generation. However, after such a heavy loss, the human race had cultivated a king-rank expert in a short period of time. This kind of foundation was really unfathomable. Even if the human race couldn't recover its status as the overlord in the future, it would still have a place among the various races. At this time, everyone's eyes immediately looked around. Soon, everyone's eyes were focused on Yi Fan. They could see through the strength of the people present, but they couldn't see through Yi Fan's strength directly. It was needless to say who had the strength of a king-rank expert. These people were also extremely emotional. Yi Fan had only appeared in these years. If the so-called giants in the early years hadn't fallen, what realm would they be at now? There were really countless geniuses in the human race. Also, he wanted to attack me. What should we do about it? Hai Wuya immediately pointed the spearhead in Yi Wudi's direction, as if what he had just done was unimportant and he didn't care at all. Those experts turned to Yi Wudi again. Why was he involved in this? They suddenly had a headache. If it was only related to the human race, it wouldn't be a big deal. So, what if they didn't give an explanation? Even if the human race had one more king-rank expert, it wouldn't be a big deal for them. However, this matter was also related to Yi Wudi, which gave them a headache. These people had entered the king rank at a young age, and each of them was a genius. They were all arrogant. Even when they were young, they weren't as arrogant as these people. None of these people were easy to get along with. Now, the first thing we need to discuss is how to drive the demon race out. If you have any grudges, please wait until the end of the conference. At this time, the king rank expert stood out and said, "It was really a headache, but he couldn't force them down. What if I say we have to settle it here?" Yi Wudi said word by word, his eyes as sharp as a knife. Chapter 1745. The atmosphere suddenly became heavy. Hai Wuya had a high status and was powerful. How could an ordinary person stop him? However, although Yi Wudi did not reveal his identity, it was obvious that he was not alone. He was not someone to be trifled with either. If he helped any one of them, he would offend the other one. If it were two ordinary juniors, they would have been killed long ago. What kind of juniors dared to be so arrogant in front of them, who were at the peak of the celestial realm? However, these two people were obviously not to be trifled with. It was not as simple as just offending two top experts of the celestial realm. All right, then Yi Wudi, what do you want? At this time, this expert of the celestial realm could only ask patiently. I'm a very simple and straightforward person. I clearly distinguish between kindness and hatred. I only have one request, and that is whoever tries to kill me, I will kill them. How about it? It's very simple, right? Yi Wudi said with a smile. Hearing this, all the big shots could not help but feel speechless. Even among the monsters, there were many people who had secretly attacked Yi Wudi. According to this standard, Wouldn't they be included in the list of hostile targets? Woody, don't go too far. Do you really think we can't do anything to you? At this time, someone finally could not help but scold him. Even if Woody had a strong background, he could not ignore experts of the celestial realm like this. Why don't you try? Woody looked at that person provocatively. I think you really are tired of living. At this time, Haiwia finally attacked again. You were lucky to not die before. However, you may not be so lucky in the future. Do you know why I never look for you to settle the score? It's not that I can't find you, but where can I find such a good and free whetstone? Woody sneered and said, if it wasn't for you repeatedly attacking me, it would have taken me a long time to enter the celestial realm again. From this point of view, I have to thank you. Haiwia was so angry that smoke was coming out of his 7 orifices. If Woody was just angry at him, he wouldn't be moved at all. However, Woody just had to look like he was very sincere. When he thought about how all his actions over the years had actually become a wedding dress for someone else, how could he not be angry? Impudent! The old servant behind Haiwia roared, his face filled with rage. Impudent? You? Woody looked at the old servant with an unfriendly expression. All right, no matter what kind of enmity you have, I don't care. But right now, this is not a place for you to cause trouble. At this time, a ruler of the oceanic tribe stood out and said in a dignified manner. He was the master of a colossus of the sea race, an extremely powerful race in the deep sea. I'll give you face today, Woody suddenly said. He sheathed his long saber and walked straight to the square. He didn't give any face to these masters of the king's stage. He was extremely arrogant. No one knew why Woody suddenly stopped. Obviously, it wasn't because he was afraid of these people in front of him. At this time, Haiwia's face showed a bit of shame and anger. Then, he shouted at the king's stage master of the oceanic tribe. Who told you to be so nosy? If that guy comes, I'll crush him to death. Do you think I'm not a match for him? The face of the sea race's king grade expert immediately turned green and white. He had come to help Haiwia out of good intentions. Although it seemed like he was going to hit both sides evenly on the surface, Haiwia had provoked him first. This in itself meant that he was biased towards Haiwia. Who knew that Haiwia would have such an attitude? It was just a slap in the face. However, he couldn't turn hostile on the spot. As Woody and Haiwia entered the venue one after another, the crowd quickly rushed in. There was no more show to watch. After Yi Fan entered the venue, he discovered that the people who had just come out weren't all King Division experts. At a glance, there were actually over 100 top-notch King Division experts. These masters were from different clans. However, in general, they were still divided into the 3 major clans: the Oceanic Tribe, the 100 Clan Alliance, and the Monster Race. Apart from that, there were also some King Stage Masters from small independent clans. Although these small clans couldn't compare to the 4 overlords, they still had decent strength. Otherwise, they would have been swallowed by the other clans long ago. Apart from the 3 overlords, there were also a few experts from the ancient Phoenix realm. They looked arrogant and obviously didn't care about the others. It was as if they were a step above the others. It was obvious at a glance. Apart from the hundreds of king-grade experts, there were also many celestial realm experts who appeared in this meeting. Although their right to speak was limited, with their strength, they definitely had the right to attend. Compared to these clans, the human race, which was one of the overlords in the past, only had Yi Fan, a king stage master now. They could only be compared to those small clans. They didn't have the prestige of the overlords in the past. At this moment, it was quite awkward. Originally, the human race was even more awkward than this. Without a king stage master to lead them, some small clans even made things difficult for them, but they couldn't fight back. This was because they didn't have a king stage master to lead them to fight back. Now that Yi Fan had appeared, he quickly became their backbone. All the experts of the human race gathered around him. In the past few decades, although some human forces had sought refuge with the other 3 races in order to save their own lives and become their lackeys in exchange for their protection, there were still very few of them. Although the human race had declined, the human forces had been operating for many years and had already developed an incomparably lofty and unyielding character. Most of them couldn't accept becoming the slaves and lackeys of the other races. Even in ancient times, the ancestors of the human race had been slaves and food for the monster race for a long time. However, it was different now. This time, according to my original intention, the human race shouldn't have joined. At this moment, a top-notch expert sitting on the highest seat of the demon race opened his mouth. When the human race heard this, they immediately woke up. They knew very well how important this grand meeting was to them. Even if they couldn't help the human race regain their position as the overlord, they couldn't allow themselves to be reduced to meat on the chopping block. This was also the main reason why they chose to come, even though they knew that they would be discriminated against and looked down upon by the other clans. It was because they had no choice but to come. Everyone turned to look at that person. Many people recognized him. Nine-headed infant demon king. How arrogant. We may have suffered heavy losses, but the nine-headed infant tribe is no better off than us. They were wiped out in a single night. Is this the so-called prestige of a royal family? That's right. What's so great about the nine-headed fierce demon tribe? Now, they only have a few people left. At most, they are comparable to us. In fact, they might even be weaker than us. How dare they be so arrogant? The human tribe was indignant. In the past, the nine-headed fierce beast tribe was just a royal tribe of the demon tribe and couldn't be compared to the entire human tribe. But now, a large number of experts had fallen, and almost all of them were on the verge of extinction. However, the human tribe had almost lost their remaining qualification, while the nine-headed fierce beast tribe could still sit high. Why? Wasn't it just a few more experts of the King Division? What was there to be proud of? Without the few experts of the King Division, the nine-headed fierce demon tribe wasn't even worthy of carrying shoes for the human race. Wasn't it awesome? Wasn't it awesome? In the end, they were still annihilated by King Taitsong. Only a few of them were still alive. They were lucky that they weren't around because they were busy preparing for the event. Otherwise, they would have been long dead by now. If Yifan wasn't here, even if they heard it, they could only swallow their anger. However, Yifan was here to suppress them. They also had a peak celestial realm expert, a King Division expert. Their confidence couldn't be compared to the past. How could the 3 King Division experts of the nine-headed fierce demon tribe not hear those words? Their cold gazes were like knives and swords as they stared over. Even if it was just the gaze of a King Division expert, it could still make those normal celestial realm experts feel a strong sense of pressure. They all wanted to kill all the human race. They were originally arrogant and swore that they would take care of the human race. However, in the end, their nest was attacked. After numerous experts died, they didn't get any benefits. Their race was nearly wiped out, and they even became the laughing stock of countless people. To them, this matter was carved into their bones. It was a blood feud. Of course, they wouldn't consider that they were the ones who attacked the human race first. To them, if it wasn't for the human race, they wouldn't have ended up like this. It was the nine-headed infant tribe who suggested that the human tribe shouldn't be given the chance to participate. However, everyone was shocked by King Tai Tsong's ruthlessness. To be able to eliminate 3 tribes in one night, regardless of whether it was King Tai Tsong or not, regardless of how he did it, it was enough to send chills down their spines. That's right. Therefore, to them, those cowards would definitely regret it in the future. They shouldn't have given the human race a chance to breathe. Chapter 1746. Although there was a strong sense of selfishness in it, they felt that it was more for the sake of the common good. After the decline of the human race, how many people present did not step on them? If the human race could rise again, could they guarantee that they would not seek revenge? It was not that the various clans did not think of this, but except for the Joeyan clan and the North Mountain clan, which had a long history with them, who would be willing to offend King Taitsong and be willing to take the lead. Moreover, even if there was no King Taitsong, the looming figure of Yi Shiwen was enough to make them afraid. In one night, he consecutively uprooted 3 clans, destroyed their foundation, destroyed their ancestral tools, and killed their old ancestors. If it was any other big clan, their vitality would be greatly damaged, and it was very likely that they would be defeated. After all, They had the advantage of the right time, place, and people, but Yi Xuan did it. No matter how he did it, this method was too terrifying for them. Moreover, in the view of everyone, even if the human race rose again and regained the throne of the overlord, so what? At most, it would be the same as before. This was the bottom line in their hearts. Therefore, in the case of no one taking the lead, no one wanted to casually make a move. However, everyone had the intention to suppress the human race. If someone took the lead, they did not mind completely suppressing the signs of the rise of the human race. Umph! Yi Fan snorted coldly and directly crushed all the eyes that stared at him. As a master of the king level, such a method was a little too childish. And on his shoulder, the young Kuan Peng chirped as if very happy. But now no one dared to look down on this little guy. Those who dared to look down on him all suffered the consequences of their actions. If the human race wants to join in, it's not impossible. It's just that the human race occupies the most fertile land in the remote antiquity, but they don't have the strength to match it. In my opinion, with the human race's current strength, they can at most occupy the territory around Mount Qi. And that's enough, isn't it? Jiuying Demon King said. The human race's expression changed drastically. The words of the Jiuying Demon King were too ruthless. Although the Qi Mountain area was huge and one of the most important parts of the human race's territory, in fact, compared to the entire human race's territory, it was not even 1%. This was to completely suppress the human race. The foundation of the human race was a huge population. If there was not enough land, how could they reproduce enough people? Without enough population, how could these upper-level geniuses be produced? These two complemented each other. In a short time, it may seem like nothing. It was just a crowded place, but once time passed, the sustainable development of the human race in the future would be reduced. In addition, there were so many forces in the human race. Fighting for half a day in such a small place like Mount Qi would only lead to internal strife. At that time, there would be no time to expand outwards. This meant that in the foreseeable future, the human race would no longer have the power to make a comeback. The words of the Jiuying Demon King were too cruel. Even if more than half of the territory of the human tribe had fallen, it was better than being trapped in Mount Qi. The words of the Jiuying Demon King were immediately echoed by many people. That's right. The human race only has one king-tier expert. How could they be qualified to occupy such a huge territory? At most, they only have the strength of a small race. What kind of strength does one deserve to own a territory? Said a king-level expert. He looked at the human race with a rather unfriendly expression. This was a king-level expert from the sea race. His territory was between the human race and the sea race. He had been fighting with the human race all year round. Both sides had already formed a blood feud. Therefore, he was unscrupulous in speaking at this time. That's right. The current human race should give up their territory. Instead of letting the devil race occupy it and turn it into a devil's land, it's better to give it to us. Anyway, the human race is unable to defend it, isn't it? Another King Division Master said. The human race had declined and had countless inheritances. The biggest inheritance was naturally the countless resources that had been hoarded in the imperial court for many years. However, these had fallen into the hands of the devil race, but the remaining inheritance was still very much. If they could receive a part of it, the strength of the human race would skyrocket. Among them, the territory was undoubtedly one of the most important. Every inch of the human race's territory was recovered from the hands of the devil race by our ancestors. We are incompetent and have lost more than half of the territory. It's already very unfilial of us. If you want us to give it up, you should stop dreaming. Yi Fan suddenly stood up. Yi Fan's body suddenly emitted a strong aura. He did not give in an inch. At this time, no matter what, he could not give in. At this time, they were powerless to defend it. That was something that could not be helped. However, if the human race gave it up willingly, it would be difficult for them to take it back in the future. Arrogant. What is the strength of the human race now? Why do you have such a huge territory? While we still have the patience to talk to you, you should obediently agree. Otherwise, you won't even be able to protect Mount Qi. Even King Taizong won't be able to protect you. The Joying Demon King said with a sneer. When it came to the hatred of the human race, he was definitely at the top. You are just a stray dog whose race has been exterminated. What qualifications do you have to say such words? Yi Fan did not hold back. Even if we are severely injured, we will not lose the Mount Qi ancestral land. The Joying Demon King was so angry that his face turned pale. However, he did not attack immediately because he looked at young Kuan-Peng with fear. If it was only Yi Fan, he would not be able to suppress him. However, with the addition of young Kuan-Peng, the situation was completely different. King Taizong? Human race. Do you rely on this person's name to scare the other races? At this time, Hai Wuya, who had failed to make the human race submit to him, stood up again. He sneered and said, "He is already dead. It's impossible for him to still be alive. This may be a secret to others, but to us, it's not a secret. There are some places that you can't go, so you don't know about it. However, to us it's very normal. I have already received the decree of Godfather. King Taizong has already fallen. The so-called King Taizong now must be fake. It must be the human race that wants to borrow King Taizong's name. Am I right?" His words were like a knife that directly pierced the hearts of the human race. Impossible. Nonsense. King Taizong is invincible in the world. It is recorded in the ancient books of our family that he had killed the invading gods from the outer regions. How could such a powerful person pass away? He only disappeared in the past. It doesn't mean that he is dead. That's right. You are just a remnant of a fallen god. What gives you the right to speak such nonsense? Did you see it with your own eyes? Even gods can live forever, let alone an invincible person like King Taizong. Nonsense. Ridiculous. Many experts of the human race finally couldn't stand it anymore and shouted. They could tolerate other things, but this matter involved King Taizong, whom they respected immensely. Moreover, King Taizong was their only hope and savior. They would absolutely not allow anyone to slander King Taizong, especially this guy who claimed to be the son of the gods. Originally, the gods were a huge taboo among the various races. The various races didn't want the gods to return and suppress them once again. Those gods were even more powerful than the kings of the various races. In the ancient books of ancient times, under the rule of the gods, the various races would tremble in fear. It wasn't as harmonious as some people thought. No one knew why the Sea Clan had taken in Hai Wuya, but it did not mean that the human race would accept it. Presumptuous! How dare you doubt me, the son of a god? Hai Wuya was instantly enraged. In the mythological era, his status could be said to be incomparably noble. However, in this era, it had become a taboo. Naturally, he was extremely angry. "Hey, if you have something to say, let's talk it out." At this moment, Yi Wudi's lazy voice was heard. However, it was obvious that he was going to help the human race if Hai Wuya decided to fight. It was obvious that he was going against Hai Wuya. "Yi Wudi, you?" His face turned green and white. He forcefully suppressed the anger in his heart. Others may not know, but Yi Wudi, you should know something. Do you dare to pat your chest and say that King Taizong is still alive? Whoosh! Everyone's eyes were focused on Yi Wudi, especially the people of the human race. They were extremely nervous. Hai Wuya dared to say this. Could it be that he really had proof? The hearts of the people of the human race suddenly skipped a beat. They had a bad premonition. This kind of thing, how would I know? Who knows where you got this news from? Yi Wudi said without giving any face. He looked as if he did not know and did not want to ask him. The people of the human race were somewhat disappointed. They wanted to get confirmation from Yi Wudi that King Taizong was still alive. However, they also heaved a sigh of relief. Although they did not get what they wanted, it was not the worst situation. In this world, only the gods can be immortal, Hai Wuya said matter-of-factly. He did not wait for the people to refute and continued, "I will only say one thing. If King Taizong is really still alive, why doesn't he come out? I think it's not because something is holding him back. Instead, this person does not exist. Everything is just a trick played by Yi Shiwen." Many experts of the human race wanted to refute, but they could not do anything because they had never seen King Taitsong. At this time, Yi Fan vaguely knew something. He thought of that handsome and peerless young man. He was shocked, but he could not say anything. "If you have the ability, let King Taitsong come out," Hai Wuya said. Hearing this, many people instantly became excited, especially those experts of the human race who could not breathe because of King Taitsong's existence. "If you can't find him, then you humans are playing tricks." Chapter 1747. Hai Wuya's words were like a heavy hammer, hitting hard on the hearts of the human race. No matter how the human race experts tried to find excuses for King Taitsong, there was one fatal weakness that could not be explained away. That was King Taitsong, who had not shown up until now. No matter what, this was a fatal weakness. That's right, if King Taitsong is still alive, then let him come out. If he comes out, we promise not to say anything. If King Taitsong is still alive, I'll be the first to pay a visit. At this time, the experts of the various races relaxed. That's right. Now that even Hai Wuya said so, they immediately believed his words. Faced with the joint attack of the various races, the faces of the human race experts turned ugly. However, there was nothing they could do. Even if King Taitsong really existed, he was not someone they could come into contact with, even if they were now the top higher-ups of the major forces. That's why I said that this is simply a conspiracy of the human race. In fact, they have not found King Taitsong at all, the Jiuying Demon King said coldly. At this time, he stood up and walked towards the human race step by step. Behind him, two other kings of the Jiuying clan followed, and a terrifying aura directly crushed over. "If King Taitsong is here, then let him save you," the Jiuying Demon King said. "He slaughtered my clan, so I'll kill you all. Let's see what else the human race has to rely on. Count me in." At this time, in the void, a figure directly rushed down. Everyone looked over, and it turned out to be a top expert of the 100 Races Alliance. He was quickly recognized. "It's the North Mountain Clan leader, the North Mountain Clan leader." Many people recognized him at once, especially the people of the human race. They could not help but be shocked. Wasn't it said that the entire North Mountain clan was slaughtered? There were actually survivors. However, now was not the time to pay attention to this. 4 King Division experts were approaching, and the human race was facing the greatest threat in history. Although Yi Fan had already stepped into the King Division, coupled with that little bird, everyone was no longer low in their hearts. The others weren't sure if King Taitsong would appear or not. However, for the Jiuying tribe and the North Mountain tribe that were almost completely exterminated, they didn't have anything to fear. How could their situation be any worse than it was now? They were also happy to see the Jiuying clan and the Northmont clan make their move. Yi Fan alone would not be able to withstand the attacks of 4 King Division experts. Even the mysterious little bird might not be able to withstand it. Because whether it was the North Mountain Tribe Chief or the 9-headed fierce Beast King, even among the King Division experts, they were invincible existences. They were the top group of people. The 4 experts walked over together one step at a time. They had already endured until now. Initially, they still had some fear towards King Taitsong, but after hearing Hai Wuya's words, the last bit of fear in their hearts was dispelled. That's right, if King Taitsong is still here, then let him come out. The aura of the 4 terrifying experts connected, suppressing one side. At this time, even Yi Wudi's face suddenly became serious. He wanted to help, but it was useless. Hai Wuya's aura was firmly locked on him. He was afraid that once he made a move, Hai Wuya would also attack at the same time. He would definitely not give him any chance to help the human clan. As for Yi Fan, he was even more shocked. He suddenly thought of the young King Division expert who was with Yi Shiwen, the young man who was eroded in the wind. If Yi Shiwen really asked King Taitsong to come out, then that young man was probably the legendary King Taitsong. However, he saw King Taitsong being eroded in the wind with his own eyes. He suddenly lost confidence in his heart. Any one of the experts here would be able to suppress him. There were also differences in strength among the experts of the King Division. Although he wasn't the weakest, he had just entered the King Division. So, It was impossible for him to contend against the experts of the older generation who had entered the king division for thousands of years. Zhuiying, Demon King. Aren't you afraid that King Taizong will be angry and kill all the remaining people of your Zhuiying clan? Yi Fan scolded. Then let him be angry. Anyway, it has already come to this. What's the difference? The dignified North Mountain clan chief's expression was cold. In the dignified North Mountain clan, apart from some small fries who were not present, he was the only one who escaped outside. In his heart, he had already incomparably hated the human clan. Even if King Taizong really existed, so what? Could he destroy them again? The four King Division experts joined hands to attack. Their aura crushed down, causing the human clan experts to have cold sweat on their backs. A chill suddenly rose from the soles of their feet to their heads. Hatred, deep-rooted hatred. It could be said that there was a blood feud between the two sides. In the past, King Taizong could still intimidate them. However, when they no longer cared about this kind of deterrence, these human clan experts realized that the human clan was no longer the overlord of the past. In front of these top experts, they were still too weak. Don't talk nonsense with them. Just directly destroy them. The Zhuiying Demon King had a ferocious expression on his face. He was filled with eagerness. If he couldn't destroy the human clan, he probably wouldn't be able to rest in peace for the rest of his life. Shua. The first to attack was an old king Zhuiying behind him. A terrifying domain instantly swept out and directly enveloped Yi Fan. He didn't attack the other celestial realm experts of the human clan. They were very clear that Yi Fan and that strange little bird were their biggest obstacles. If they were to get rid of the two of them, then the others would just be a bunch of weeds. They could get rid of them whenever they wanted. Yi Fan instantly attacked and directly blasted out a terrifying force, blasting on this domain. Rumble! A series of explosions rang out. This domain that extended over was blocked by Yi Fan. Looks not bad. However, this is the end. At this moment, the other nine-headed infant king, who looked like a middle-aged man, had already appeared behind Yi Fan. His legs swept towards Yi Fan, and a terrifying divine radiance burst forth in the void. The leg whip was like a long dragon, directly sweeping towards Yi Fan's waist, wanting to completely sweep him to death. Prung! Yi Fan's reaction was also very fast. His right hand directly flipped out countless laws, wrapping around them, forming a powerful force, and blasted towards the leg whip. A terrifying sound of metal clashing rang out. Yi Fan blasted the leg whip of the middle-aged Zhuiying Demon King, exploding a thunderous roar. The exchange between the two could be said to be extremely fast. Yi Fan consecutively took a few steps back, and only then did he barely manage to dissipate the terrifying force. Naturally, he was extremely shocked. Although he knew that there was a gap between them, he only truly understood how huge the gap was when he actually fought. If it was only one of them, he might be able to barely handle it. However, there were four of them. Beep beep. At this moment, young Kuin Peng, who had been standing on Yi Fan's shoulder, finally moved. His first move was like a thunderbolt. Countless wind attribute laws swept around young Kuin Peng. Although he was young, his understanding of the wind attribute laws had already reached a level that countless people dared not imagine. He appeared like a bolt of lightning, directly pouncing towards the elderly Zhuiying Demon King, who still wanted to attack. The elderly Zhuiying Demon King was suddenly attacked by young Kuin Peng. For a moment, he was completely unable to react, and could only watch young Kuin Peng sweeping over. Whoosh! At this moment, a terrifying spear radiance broke through the sky and directly pointed towards young Kuin Peng. Dang! A loud roar sounded. The long spear broke through the sky and pointed at young Kuin Peng. All the laws on young Kuin Peng's body suddenly swept out, protecting him within. Boom! With a terrifying roar, the long spear shattered the laws and directly hit young Kuin Peng. Young Kuin Peng was instantly sent flying and spat out a mouthful of blood. This was the most crucial moment for the Zhuiying Demon King to attack. Even young Kuin Peng, who had just toyed around with a few other Zhuiying Demon Kings, was directly hit by the spear. Young Kuan Peng dissipated the force in the void and stopped his body. He cried out, and his eyes burned with the desire to fight. He had never suffered such a huge loss at the hands of anyone before. However, he had suffered a loss at the hands of the Jiuying Demon King. This was absolutely intolerable. He directly rushed towards the Jiuying Demon King. You little B***starred, you do have some skills. At this moment, the Jiuying Demon King directly pointed his long spear in the void and shot out countless spear radiates. He sealed young Kuan Peng and started fighting with him. In his heart, he was extremely shocked. This young Kuan Peng could actually fight with him to this extent. What was his background? Why did he look a little familiar? At this time, the experts of the human clan saw this scene, and their hearts suddenly sank. Yi Fan was repeatedly defeated under the attack of the two Jiuying kings, and their savior young Kuan Peng was also entangled by the Jiuying Demon King. Although he was not at a disadvantage, it was impossible for him to defeat the Jiuying Demon King. At this time, the North Mountain Clan chief, who had not made a move, looked coldly at the many experts of the human clan and walked towards them step by step. How is it that bullshit King Taitsong really didn't appear? Today is the day of your death, and no one can save you. The North Mountain Clan chief said with a ferocious expression, "You lowly ants, how dare you attack our North Mountain Clan? Your crimes are unforgivable, so die." Boom! A terrible force raged out of the body of the North Mountain Clan chief. Chapter 1748. Many masters of the human clan were in extreme despair, but they could not break free from the shackles of a king rank master. At this time, whether it was Yi Fan or young Kuan Peng, it was too late to save them. Boom! With a loud roar, an astonishing sword aura descended from the sky and landed in front of the North Mountain Clan chief. Everyone looked over, and the sunlight sprinkled down, incomparably holy. A green figure walked closer and closer. His green robes fluttered in the wind. It was a man with a delicate and handsome appearance. This is Yi Shiwen. Many people's voices were trembling, as if they could not believe what they saw in front of them. Although Yi Shiwen had shown his face a long time ago, he disappeared very quickly, so in fact, no one had seen him at all. Except for Yi Fan, many people did not even have much hope for Yi Shiwen. Because just like King Taitsong, Yi Shiwen was rumored to have the strength of a king rank master, but no one could really confirm it. No one had really seen him defeat a king rank master. Therefore, gradually the crowd no longer held any hope. At this time, everyone's eyes were wet, as if the scene many years ago was still vivid in their minds. No matter how much hatred they had for Yi Shiwen, at this time, they were extremely excited. Yi Shiwen's thin figure was as heavy as a mountain under the sun, as if it could support everything. Yi Shiwen, yes, it's really him, great! Everyone of the human clan cried tears of joy, and the masters of the various clans suddenly became dignified and fearful. If it was only Yi Shiwen, it was not enough to make them like this, but everyone knew that Yi Shiwen and King Taitsong appeared together. If Yi Shiwen was here, it was very likely that King Taitsong would also follow, and that would be really bad. Yi Shiwen, the Jiuying Demon King, and the other three looked at Yi Shiwen with gritted teeth, wishing they could tear him into pieces. Their royal family was uprooted because of Yi Shiwen. How could they not feel hatred in their hearts? How arrogant! A few remnants of a clan actually dare to be arrogant here. Yi Shiwen spoke, and as soon as he opened his mouth, it was extremely domineering. It was as if the human clan was still the overlord of this area. Humph! The human race has finally produced a decent one. Haiwei looked at Yi Shiwen. His eyes flickered, but his tone was still filled with disdain. When Yi Wudi saw Yi Shiwen, he was so excited that he couldn't control himself. You humans have already suffered heavy losses. Do you really think you can defy the heavens with just a few of you? How is that possible? The North Mountain Patriarch sneered. I alone am enough to deal with you remnants, Yi Shiwen said with an indifferent look on his face. It seemed as if he was talking about something, as if it was a matter of course. One person is enough? I think you're too arrogant. The North Mountain Patriarch shouted coldly, and the aura of his whole body suddenly raged out. Heaven and earth were trembling. A big hand directly grabbed out, and it expanded against the wind. The entire big hand, countless divine rays splashed out like a shocking cage, grabbing Yi Shiwen, trying to grab him to death. In this big hand, countless laws emerged, revolving around this amazing big hand, rumbling and rotating. Each finger was like a heavenly pillar crushing down. Although the North Mountain clan was exterminated, it was worthy of being one of the top 10 royal clans of the 100-Clan Alliance. The strength of the North Mountain Patriarch was unfathomable and very terrifying. A big hand slapped out with the aura of creation. It was extremely terrifying. Countless people were horrified. Just one hand was enough to seriously injure some weaker king-ranked experts. It was truly terrifying. If they were in his place, even if they were to face him, they probably wouldn't have the courage to face him head-on. Yi Shiwen's expression remained unchanged. Facing the big hand that was grabbing over, there was no fear on his face. He directly clenched his 5 fingers into a fist. It did not turn into a star, but directly turned into a universe. The shattered star fist had reached perfection in his hands. It was far beyond the imagination of the ancestors of the true martial school who had created this martial technique at the beginning. The stars in his fist and tin had turned into a universe, and the power had climbed to an extreme level. In the past 100 years, he did not do nothing. Although he had been in Nirvana, he had not stopped practicing martial arts for a moment. With enough spiritual energy and resources, coupled with the help of the mysterious space, Yi Shiwen's accumulation over the past 100 years was unfathomable. If it weren't for this deep accumulation and foundation of hundreds of years, it would be impossible for his strength to directly rush to the king rank in one go. Boom! With a loud roar, the universe and the big hand that was splashing colorful divine rays collided fiercely. The big hand of colorful divine rays suddenly exploded in the void, turning into divine rays that scattered all over the sky. Countless divine laws exploded in the void, scattered like stars, and the spiritual energy turned into countless forces that swept in all directions. So strong. There was a look of horror in the eyes of a master of the king rank. This time, the fight ended with the junior Yi Shiwen's complete victory. In everyone's opinion, even if Yi Shiwen entered the king rank, his strength should be limited. Even if he was not in the weakest batch, he should still be far from the peak. But Yi Shiwen announced how wrong their thinking was with his incomparably strong combat power. The North Mountain Clan Chief, even if he was not the strongest, could become the clan chief of the North Mountain Clan, a royal family. His strength could already be regarded as one of the few powerhouses in the world. Not to mention the top 10, but he was at least in the top 20 or even the top 30. Yi Shiwen's expression was indifferent, but his tone was full of coldness and ruthlessness. Even the king rank masters were shocked, not to mention those ordinary celestial realm masters. They didn't even dare to approach casually and retreated again and again. I said that if I want to kill you, I alone am enough. That night, you were not there, so I let you escape. But today, let's stop here. The Jiuying clan and the North Mountain clan will be eliminated. Yi Shiwen's expression was indifferent, but his tone was full of coldness and ruthlessness. He was extremely domineering. If he said this before, perhaps everyone would think that Yi Shiwen was crazy, but now they didn't dare to say so. He might have such an ability. Arrogant. At this time, the North Mountain clan chief was furious. He immediately attacked in an instant, and countless laws fell down. Under his anger, the laws condensed. The domain on his body spread out in the direction of Yi Shiwen in a fan shape. Wherever it passed, the void shattered, and chaos was leaked out. The North Mountain clan chief released his domain. He was really angry. In this domain, he was like a god, invincible, and no one was his opponent. Yi Shiwen's face was calm. He took a step forward and didn't avoid the domain. Instead, he directly rushed into the domain. It's useless to struggle. Yi Shiwen's footsteps were fast to the extreme. In an instant, he appeared in front of the North Mountain clan chief. Above his fist, a huge universe was hovering. In an instant, it was as if heaven and earth were being split apart and life and death were changing within it. Boom! Yi Shiwen's fist fiercely blasted 3 inches in front of the North Mountain clan chief and stopped abruptly. In front of the North Mountain clan chief, a colorful divine robe emerged. The colorful colors suddenly turned into a quaint array that protected him in it. On this ancient array, all kinds of ancient and mysterious patterns constantly appeared. It was incomparably brilliant. The North Mountain clan chief had truly used the colorful divine robe to the extreme. In the end, it was different from the people of the North Mountain clan that Yi Shiwen had encountered before. Yi Shiwen, this is the treasure of my clan. It is impossible for you to break through it. Die! The North Mountain clan chief shouted. An endless divine light appeared behind him. It was like a surging long river, boiling in the void. Under such circumstances, he instantly attacked and fought back in an instant. It was extremely terrifying. The North Mountain clan chief was worthy of his name. As soon as he attacked, a Milky Way descended from the sky and fell fiercely on Yi Shiwen's head. Rumble! A terrifying mushroom cloud rose from the void. It obliterated matter and shattered the void. Everyone couldn't help but be horrified when they saw this scene. It was too terrifying. This was the means of a truly tyrannical master of the King Division. Even if it was the Northern Mountains clan that had been exterminated, no one would dare to underestimate him after the prestige he displayed in this battle. The people of the human clan looked at the scene in fear. Yi Shiwen was their last hope. If even he died, then there would really be no hope for the human clan. However, at this moment, before anyone could react, a terrifying light broke through the layers of clouds, and a shocking aura swept over, heading straight for the North Mountain clan chief. Bang! With a terrifying collision, the endless clouds were directly scattered. The golden light flickered, and it once again blasted in front of the North Mountain clan chief. In an instant, the 7-colored divine robe appeared again, turning into a shocking array formation that protected the North Mountain clan chief. Immediately after, the phantoms of several rare beasts appeared above the array formation. They roared under the sunlight, looking extremely terrifying. The attack was blocked, and everyone finally discovered that Yi Shiwen was unscathed. Under the strong attack of the North Mountain clan chief, he was unscathed. He didn't even look embarrassed at all, but his expression became even more indifferent. It's useless, Yi Shiwen. My colorful divine robe is blessed by the gods. It's impossible for you to break it. The North Mountain clan chief shouted loudly and was extremely arrogant. Although he couldn't do anything to Yi Shiwen just now, which was beyond his expectations, he didn't care. As long as the colorful divine robe wasn't broken, he was invincible. Oh, is that so? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.